Supervisors for Dubuque County into session. We have a work session this morning scheduled for 8:15 with the county engineer. Anthony, before I turn it over to you, I just want to take a minute to look at our scheduling for your work sessions. The letter that went out to the neighbors about fob trucking indicates it's going to be at 8:30. So would, in fairness, let's just hold that and we'll have that discussion at 8:30. So if folks want to jump on, is that all right?
That's fine. Yep.
So then we can talk about any of the items 2, 3, and 4 on your agenda that you'd like to bring up if the parties are present, if you were expecting that Mr. Ganson and Mr. Drake would be present.
Sure. Yeah, let's go ahead and do item number 2, discussion regarding the Ganson quarry.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you then.
Okay, so this started, a few weeks ago when we started to put together our rock specifications for our contract rock for our gravel roads. And I had a few of my staff members approach me about concerns about the Ganson quarry having too much of a chert quantity within the stockpiles. And I think the main issue they've seen out there from the contract rock from last year was the just amount of the coarse chert that represents out on the road. And it's a harder material to try to bind together with the limestone, and ends up being more of a kind of a marbly, I don't want to say it's round, but ends up being more of a loose rock on the road itself. And it does have like a very sharp quality to it. So I've had some concerns with people blowing their tires on the rock itself. So I took a look at the pile itself and noticed it seems like there's a fair amount of chert quantity in there. This rock was crushed up, from what I understand, back in 2019, and was used on our roads in that area for the first time last year. Since then, I've checked to see with the DOT what the specifications are on the rock itself. Generally for Class A roadstone, the only thing they really look at is an abrasion quality and also a gradation quality. And typically what we look at is the gradation. So it's kind of a sizing of the aggregate. We want to make sure that we have a good fine mix with a good coarse mix, so it all binds well together. There really is not a chert specification per se, but that does not take away from the fact that chert can be a problem on gravel roads itself. So kind of fast forward, we put together our specifications, sent it out to the suppliers in the area, and we noted in there that for this year we would not accept rock from the Ganson quarry because of the chert quantity in there. I did talk to Mr. Ganson and Tom Mercer from River City Paving, or River City Stone, and stated that this is certainly not a banning of the quarry forever. Just this particular stockpile we have concerns with, and we're choosing to not use it this year. I did speak to the district materials engineer with the DOT, and he noted that in this particular quarry there are ledges of chert and limestone. On different years when they crush, they might get into more of the chert quantity or makeup, and then other years they might get into more of a limestone makeup. So for this year, we've chosen to spec out the use of Ganson quarry because of the chert quantity.
Thank you, Anthony. Do my colleagues have any questions of Anthony in terms of context or to date at this point? If not, we'll ask our guests if they wish to participate.
Hi, this is Flint Drake. I'm here with Mr. Ganson. Part of this is we're just trying to understand it, because our understanding is the rock from the Ganson quarry meets all the specs, has for 25 years, I think. Tom Mercer can speak to that a little bit more than me, but and is being used on a DOT project right now. So we're just trying to understand what it is. It's from the same geology, if you will, as all the other quarries in the area, and we just don't. I guess it sounds like we're just relying on a couple of people who said they think maybe it doesn't wear quite as well on roads or something. And to us, if it meets the specs, the DOT has used a split sampling and tested it themselves and passes all the DOT specs. it passes all River City specs that in other words, passing the specs the county has provided for the project. So for us, just looking at it objectively, we're looking at it and saying the county enters into a contract with River City that says we need this spec of rock. And we have a quarry that provides that spec of rock. And as I said, it's been used for 25 years all over the area. It's the same geology as all the other quarries in the area. And it's being used by the DOT right now. You can understand, I think, why we, I guess, have a question about why all of a sudden this quarry is being excluded.
I think it's perfectly understandable that you would have questions, Flint. So Anthony, do you want to address that and just pursue this as a discussion?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's acceptable according to our specifications when it comes to gradation. That I'm not refuting one bit. And the DOT is using it. I'm assuming they're using more of a, I guess I don't know where they're using it, to be honest. I don't want to speculate on that, but it is an approved source for Class A roadstone. That I do agree with. Now, when it comes to the chert quantity, that's more of a gray area that even the DOT doesn't have a necessarily a good specification on. I did speak to the like I said, the district materials engineer, and he said he'd be willing to come out and test it and give us a chert quantity on it. They do a pick test, and they basically give us a count number on that, and that gives us a kind of a percentage to go off of. We're strictly just pointing out that we've had performance issues on the roads themselves.
Anthony, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted if he could define chert for me. I don't know. I'm just a lawyer. I don't know what chert means. That might help.
Chert is like a chalk.
It's like the
Yeah.
chalky stuff.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for letting me jump on here. My name's Tom Mercer, and I'm the manager of River City Stone. I'm also a geologist. A few things. When you're dealing with chert in limestone, it basically is in every quarry in Dubuque County. To varying degrees is what the chert content. It is a hard, inert. It's embedded in the limestone, usually in thin layers. So if you go to the quarry, you go to any of our quarries, you're going to see a little chert, thin layers of chert. It usually shows up as white, sometimes gray if it's immature. Now, if you look in the specifications for Dubuque County, I don't know if you can see if I get it close enough, it says there's a soundness. A freezing and thawing shall not exceed 15%. So basically, when you have a high chert content, you're going to have a high freeze thaw content. So on this quarry, we have a freeze thaw content of 2. That is very low in the pile. That is randomly tested by the DOT. So if you would have a high chert content, that's going to make your freeze thaw go way up. And a lot of times we cannot have that chert when we make asphalt stone and concrete stone. So we have to get a certain ledge of rock to make asphalt stone and concrete stone. However, when we're doing it in road base, we were allowed a little bit more leeway. But if you look at the spec here, we're way below 15%. So, if you go to another couple of our quarries, which this is the Hopkinton formation, we have another couple of quarries that have the Hopkinton, both in Bernard and our Thole quarry on Higginsport Road. And they both are, if you look at the geology, you're going to see almost the same geology, at least in the Thole and the Ganson quarry. They're almost identical. They're identical. So, the geology doesn't change much. If you go, and it can't, because the DOT specifies we have to have bedding planes, all and consistent and uniform bedding planes, all throughout our quarries. If that varies, then they throw them out. They call it an unconformity. So, to say that this rock is different than what we did, 10 years ago, it's just not true. It's the same geology, it's the same crush that we've been doing. I look back in my notes, we have history from from the DOT from way back. And it's the same. It's basically, we've been very consistent with this quarry throughout our time that we've operated it for the Ganson family. So it's, you know, and we have a vested interest because we have a big stockpile there. And this is it's a quarry that is used quite a bit with the county. So, you know, we have a vested interest, and we also have a vested interest for Jim because he's the owner of the quarry. So that's basically.
I would like to make a quick note. Our guys actually don't pull from that quarry very often. When it comes to spot rocking or using a rock for different purposes, they a lot of times don't pull from that quarry because they know of the issues with the chert. So just wanted to make that note.
On the contrary, I would disagree with that, Anthony. I live right there. That quarry is used a lot because I have my own end loader there, the convenience, trucking, and so on. So I disagree with that statement 100%. It's because of a couple of your operators that I think it was kind of lunchroom gossip. For instance, one of your employees that made the statement that my end loader wasn't good enough because the bucket was too small. I know how this here environment works. Mighty M has the same type of thing. And basically, and I got a nephew that's one of the operators that's got a family grudge going on. I can't believe on behalf of the taxpayers' interest that you would have to increase the cost to the taxpayer to haul rock from a further quarry, because no matter who gets this bid, they're going to have to elevate their bid price if they got to haul it further.
Actually,
No.
on the contrary,
No, I'm not done yet. So on behalf of specifications, why do we have specifications if you're not going to follow it? On behalf of the county supervisors, you, as I would assume you're the boss over the county workers, I don't know, that you're allowing a couple of inexperienced county gossip workers to determine whether or not we're going to close down the Bernard Quarry or the Gansey Quarry. And now, Anthony, you had told me that maybe they run into some type of a mud line. Well, I understand you were out there last week. I just missed you by 10 minutes. Did you see a mud line in our quarry?
I did not.
Okay. So all speculation off of two people that have been gossiping. Maybe you ought to consider asking your operators how they're maintaining this rock. Are they going out there when it's too dry, when it won't merge together? There's a lot of unanswered questions here over a couple of uneducated. These two people are not educated in testing rock, if I'm not mistaken. They're not educated in setting the specifications on the rock. And this is what you're basing it on. Now, this is what you had told me. You said you can't go against your two operators.
I didn't say that. I said
You know, that is
Anthony,
exact words that you said.
Let's come back to the chair of the board for just a minute. This is intended to be an initial discussion. And certainly the engineer has extraordinary qualifications, and the Board of Supervisors ultimately makes decisions, but clearly we're going to defer to a county engineer who handles the road department and has done so well. Okay, and we are pretty excited about the staff we have. So that's probably not going to be a real exciting, discussion point, but this is a discussion. And I think that, Anthony, to be able to put out, obviously it's more than specs, it's performance, and whether it performs for other things and not for the roads, that can be a valid objective fact. So, I don't think we're going to have winners and losers here. I think it's maybe doesn't fit the purpose for which we need it for the request for quote that we sent out. Anthony, Jay, do you want to say something? I see you.
Yeah, one of the things that was mentioned earlier is that, possibly getting a test. And so whether that's an independent test or it's a state DOT test, but if we can get maybe a third opinion, it kind of separates the parties a little bit. I would be open to that, to finding additional information, because as all of you on the call that are going back and forth can probably understand, those of us at the Board of Supervisors know very little about rock. And so it puts us in a more difficult position to be the judge and jury. So I would be interested in the testing process and seeing what we can find out as far as the quality of what we're currently debating.
Well, exactly. And I don't know the cost of the test, but I do think it's important to say that, you know, the determination of what stone to use and what the quality of the rock is for the project is going to be decided by Anthony and our long-term supervisors, you know, the long-term road crew members. So, but Anthony, can you give us some more information about the nature of the testing and the cost?
Yeah, as far as the cost, I'm not sure on that. I'd have to explore that a little more, but the nature of the test would be to contact the DOT and they would come out and take an independent sample and do what's called a kind of a chert count. I would like to do that anyhow, just to get a better understanding of what percentage of chert we're looking at. Just a couple points that I want to bring up. I don't do everything my road crew says. I investigate and I try to make the best possible decision. And also, we are not spending more for rock this year. In fact, we the winning bidder for this particular area was cheaper this year compared to last year. So those are 2 points I want to make public here. But going forward, I would like to contact the DOT and get a sense of what we have in there.
And I think on Jim's behalf, he can speak for himself, but I think he thinks that sounds good. You know, let's get another test. And I mean, Anthony and Tom, frankly, are the people who understand rock. So if you guys wouldn't mind working together and getting that test and talking about it, and then let's see what we find out. Sounds good.
Sure. Yep.
Is there any
We
other
test-
comments? Mr.
We test our
Mercer?
rock all the time. I mean, we spend lots and lots of money testing our rock in 4 different states. So yeah, we'll do whatever we need to do.
Supervisor Potoff, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I had talked to Mr. Ganson regarding it and told him that obviously I'm no expert on rock by any means. I guess the only thing that I'd agree with Jay, we should get the test for the church. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about the DOT specifications, but I don't know where there's any DOT gravel roads around our area. So they're not using it for gravel roads. So.
Right. Anthony, the other thing that I'd like to have you do, you know, whenever you write to supervisors, it's public record. The note that you sent to us with the photos and such, would you please send that to Mr. Ganson, to Mr. Drake, and to Mr. Mercer? Let's send on that so that they can see, you know, what you've informed us and what the photos show. So we're all on the same starting point, at least what the supervisors are being presented with.
I don't have Mr. Ganson or Mr. Drake's email address, but I could send it to Tom Mercer and he could disperse from there.
Will that work?
Yeah.
That sounds
Yep.
good. Yes,
Yep.
that's fine.
Okay.
I've got the email.
One comment, Harley, you know, the DOT has no gravel roads, but they had probably, I don't know, I'm just gonna guess, they probably have as many miles of gravel along the shoulders of the highway as what the county does of gravel roads. And I can't imagine the DOT not being concerned about the quality of the rock for that reason.
Yeah, we're shouldering. Actually, it's kind of coincidence. We're shouldering Interstate 151 from Dubuque to Cascade as we speak out of the Ganson Quarry for the DOT.
Anthony, would this be rock that we'd be actually laying on our right of way? So it's going to be on the actual roads,
Yes.
correct, and not for shoulders. So you know, there's a concern obviously for safety if we've got, you know, tire flats and things like that, which would be unusual. So very good. All right. Well, if you can move this to some discussion, but obviously you're welcome to be back. I was glad to see it was a work session and we're happy to be engaged on this topic.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much,
it, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Anthony, are we, can we turn our attention then to the fob trucking exemption permit? And I don't know, do we have Sheriff Kennedy? We do. I believe Sheriff Kennedy is with us as well.
Yes, I'm here. Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, let's discuss the pop trucking exemption request. And I don't know if AJ's on the phone or not. He said he was going to try to be, okay, I do see him there. So maybe I'll have. if the
He
board
should
would
be
like-
joining.
Oh, very good. Good morning, Todd.
Good
We have
morning.
Todd and do we have AJ? Is that under
He-
Deborah Marcus or no?
I just hung up with AJ, so I do believe he'll be
Okay.
joining. It might be just taking him a minute to get logged on.
Correct. I see his.
Yep,
this
I'm
is
here,
under-
Anna. Thank you.
All right, very good. So, all right, Anthony, over to you then.
Okay, I'll just kind of set the stage here. So a couple of weeks ago, the request came in, and we Sheriff Kennedy and myself brought it to the board for discussion about possibly giving AJ Fob or Fob Trucking an exemption to run on Monastery Road. Currently, Monastery Road is an axle embargoed road, as is Prairie Creek Road also. Fob Trucking operates off of Ryan Road, and they've made the request, instead of going down Highway 151 to Sundown Road or wherever else, they are requesting to go down Monastery to connect over to Sundown and disperse from there. Since then, we've sent letters out to everybody along Monastery Road to get a public input, and I've received quite a few emails and calls, as I'm sure the board has as well. I've received a petition from quite a few people stating that they are against this exemption request. I had a couple people did call in or email and say that they were for it. But I would say the overall majority are saying that they are against it. So I guess if it's okay, let's turn it over to AJ to kind of give some background on it.
Mr. Fob asked me to help him with this, and I'm going to make a few comments, and then obviously if I miss anything or there's any technical questions about that AJ might need to answer, he's certainly on to do that. But basically, Mr. Fob has a trucking operation that's just south of Monastery Road on Ryan Road, and he's got two choices to go to basically Sundown Road. Either one, he has to enter on 151. I guess it's just south and west of his trucking operation, or he can access Monastery Road. Just it's going to be basically north and east of his trucking operation that he can then use Monastery Road to get to Sundown. The problem that, well, maybe I'll address some of the usages too, because Mr. Fob has 4 employees total. He estimates between 2 and 3 days a week he would need to use Monastery Road for any of his trucking operations, and that these would be during weekdays and they would be during daylight. So normal time of operation would be no earlier than 6 a.m., no later than 7 p.m. So we're not talking about a high volume of traffic. We're talking 2 to 3 days a week. We're talking weekdays, talking daylight. And to remind the board what we were asking for, that's empty load. So it would only be for the trucks to leave his facility empty, so he could go over to Sundown Road to collect loads further to the west and north. The reason that this is a request is being made is where Mr. Fob accesses Highway 151, he estimates to less than a quarter mile of visibility due to there's kind of a knoll or a bump in the road that doesn't allow for clear visibility. And it's a safety issue. It takes a while for trucks, even empty, to get, when it makes that turn, to run through the gears and get up to highway speeds. And the concern that AJ has is a safety one. If he has to take 151 due to these embargoes, that he's going to be facing that traffic coming at, well, posted speed limit 65, but we all know people tend to at least go faster than that. And the concern would be that like what we saw on Cox Springs Road here last week, where I think it was a Horsefield cement truck got out on the highway and the DOT truck runs into the back of them, and the guy gets airlifted to Iowa City. That's the exact type of risk that AJ Fobb's trucks face when they're having to grind through the gears on 151 there to get up to traffic speed. And then what AJ also wanted to address, because I think there's always some fears of quote unquote Jake brakes and whatnot. Mr. Fobb's trucks, he states, have all factory exhaust systems. None of them are modified to have loud straight pipes, and the limited number of trips he'll be making during daylight hours, that during daytime should also address that issue. I think there's also been some concern voiced to the board and or Mr. Bargett that that it's kind of a slippery slope argument that, well, if you let AJ Fobb do it, then it's going to be everybody. I do note that AJ Fobb is, as far as I know, the only trucking company that's located along that stretch of the road and would be the only one that would be local. So there really wouldn't be any reason for anyone else to make that request. And I guess the last point I would like to address on it would be the fact that the road is improved now. Monastery Road has been updated and upgraded, and my understanding is that the use that we're talking about, a few trucks a week that are empty, should not cause a concern for the disintegration or of the road, and that it's actually, and I'm sure that Anthony can speak to this, but that there shouldn't be any reason that his trucks couldn't safely navigate that stretch of the road. And for those reasons, we would ask that the board grant a permit to allow this limited use by Fobb Trucking.
Mr. Loper, can you give me a quick clarification on the exact route he wants to take? I know there was some questions that came up to me from some different landowners as to there was thoughts that actually he wants to take Prairie Creek Road to McAndrews Road to Monastery. And so I've heard both sides that's the requested route, or it's just Monastery straight.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and AJ can certainly confirm, but what we're proposing is he would enter Monastery Road at Ryan Road, just, I'm saying, north and east of his facility. So he would not be taking McAndrews or Prairie Creek to access Monastery Road. It would be the closest point where he could get on it. And he'd be agreeable to accept that in writing, or if that'd be the terms of your permit, however you'd be willing to write it up.
That is correct, Anthony. Ryan Road to Monastery Road.
So no longer Prairie Creek.
No longer Prairie Creek.
Okay. Who do we send the notices to? Prairie Creek residents?
No, we sent them to everybody on Prairie Road.
Okay, thank you.
I did receive a call from a gentleman on Prairie Creek Road, so I think the word is out anyways.
Penny, just a few things here. I think that we were talking about a temporary permit, right? I mean, this wasn't going to be an exemption granted ongoing. I thought we were talking about, a year's trial or something. Do I misrecall that?
No, that's what I had brought up in the last meeting, that we would do a temporary permit and they would have to run empty. And it would be a 1-year permit to kind of see how that goes. And, you know, if he's not following the rules of the permit anyways, you could revoke it at any time.
And can
Anthony,
you-
on Monastery Road, how long have we had a embargo on that road? Do you know, and why?
I'm not sure the origin of it, but it's been quite some time. I'm assuming the reason why is that, you know, probably a couple, maybe 2 or 3 fold. One would be probably the condition of the road itself, whether that was a deteriorated surface, maybe more narrow shoulders, curvy, windy, hilly, and then you've got some residential areas that could have factored in as well. But I can't really say exactly why the county did it, but those kind of come to mind, I guess.
Anthony, I guess I've lived here my whole life, and what I've noticed on Monastery Road was, okay, at the bottom of the hill there was a bridge, a narrow bridge, that was probably the main reason why the road got embargoed to start with. That it was only like a 1.5 lanes wide, and it was kind of on a corner. And I'm sure Harley could probably testify to that, you know, wasn't a very safe road back in the day. Now that bridge has been replaced, before Anthony's day, that bridge was replaced with a box culvert, and that road got a lot wider at the bottom. And now that, so technically it should have been opened back up at that time, or could have been. But now that it got regrind, relaid down, and new asphalt on it, there's no reason why it couldn't hold up to some truck traffic.
Anthony, is this a road that you would, I mean, had this been your decision during your tenure as engineer, would you have embargoed this road based on its current situation?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's not unlike a lot of other roads we have in the county that have frequent, you know, semis running on them. You know, I think of like 5 Points Road. There's a quarry off that road, and it's you know, we resurfaced it. It has narrow shoulders, but I would not embargo that road. You know, maybe if you wanted to embargo roads based on narrow shoulders, I mean, we're going to be embargoing a lot of roads in the county. So from that perspective, I would not do that. Now that AJ brought up the fact about that narrow structure, I do remember him or somebody else saying that at one time there was an embargoed structure that this was possibly put in play for that. You know, one thing I don't want this to be is a freight route, a freight connector. I don't want to open this up to just anybody and everybody. So I did want to be cautious about this if we were to do this, that this would be a permit that's temporary in nature. It's only restricted, you know, kind of restricted to kind of a business that's on that road. And that's what fob trucking would be. And he'd have to run empty loads. But I don't want to open this up to anybody and everybody who wants to run across the county and through this route.
What is the speed limit on the road, and should we consider that it be reduced?
It's kind of variable. I believe it's 50 miles per hour coming off the Sundown Road, and then I think it starts reducing down to, I think, 45 and 35.
I mean, that's certainly some of the correspondence I've received has been that the speed on the road with the heavy trucks are, you know, not compatible. So, I mean, one way you can control that is to reduce the speed.
Yeah, and as we know, you know, people don't like to pay attention to signs anyway. So, I mean, just change the speed limit doesn't necessarily change behavior.
Sure. And then how many people did sign a petition? I was not aware there was a petition.
Oh, okay. I got an envelope dropped off on my desk on Friday, and it said they CC'd the board, but maybe didn't get it. So let me just do a quick count here. It looks like about 16, either 16 names or 16 households total. Sometimes there was 2 names to 1 household.
They're all Monastery Road addresses, though, correct?
There is mostly Monastery. 4 of them are on Ryan Road.
Okay.
Just give you an idea, this is what I received. So it's an official petition.
Well, previously we had discussed this, Anthony. I thought you had mentioned that you were, you would possibly contemplate removing that embargo on that road once it was redone. You recall that, or?
Yeah, that was a discussion I think we were gonna have to have at some point. And that is, you know, as everybody knows, that's the difficult part of the southeast part of the county is there's no good connection down there. You know, the Southwest Arterial does help a lot. But kind of outside of that, we don't have a lot of good connectors that aren't embargoed. You know, you've got Swiss Valley, you've got Monastery, I think North Cascade as well. There's a lot of, you know, kind of restricted roads in that area. So yeah, that discussion was going to have to happen at some point.
Okay, well, obviously in the past, there's been numerous complaints about Monastery Road and truck traffic on it. I know the sheriff's office has spent a lot of time down there trying to keep truck traffic off of it, but it's a shortcut to 151 and truckers can find them and they'll use them. Obviously, we've been dealing with Mr. Fobb and the issues down there, and one of the issues was obviously is on Prairie Creek Road about a year or so ago. At that time, we kind of tried to work with AJ to get through this because part of what he was saying was that once the Southwest Arterial opened, we wouldn't have the issue. Well, the Southwest Arterial's open and we're still having issues. You know, the complaint about the south access to 151 and the site limitations, I understand that, but couldn't he just take Ryan Road to 151 at the Skyline intersection? That'd be safer there. Obviously, there's a lot of support for not allowing this along Monastery Road and trying to come up with some alternatives that would work for everybody.
You know, another alternative that, you know, again, like I said earlier, was kind of brought up to me that I'd heard of was going Prairie Creek to McAndrews to Monastery. That would bypass all the kind of the residential area, but I'm not in favor of that right now because of the condition of Prairie Creek and McAndrews. So, you know, until we were to do something with those 2 roads, I would not want to entertain that option.
Okay.
I know the last time we met, when we had this discussion, we did not have Mr. Loker or Mr. Fobb with us. I think they misunderstood the time, maybe that we would be addressing this issue. I'm very happy that we sent out the letter to the neighbors to let them know. The response back to me indicates that we might have more of an issue than we think. We might only be seeing the tip of public comment about this. Certainly didn't expect to get a petition back of 17 people, 17 households. We have invited citizens to comment. Your letter has indicated that they could have some public comment at this meeting as well. So do we know if there are individuals who wish to comment, or we could hold until 9 o'clock, which is our public comment period during the Board of Supervisors meeting, which is only in 5 minutes, and invite them to participate at that as well. I don't know that we have a recommendation for today. You know, the Fobb argument to me seems logical. but the neighbors have some concerns that I'd really like to hear about.
Yeah, just to give a little background, we did not put anything on for resolution today for approval.
Mhm.
I just wanted to continue the discussion and it would have been difficult to put something together anyways, as far as like a permit, because each of their trucks would have to be permitted separately. So, we would have multiple
Right.
permits there for approval.
Right.
So-
The other thing I would say to the public that is, tuned in here, and that we have not heard from Sheriff Kennedy this morning, though he was a very verbal part of our discussion a couple weeks back. And, I don't know, Sheriff Kennedy, if you want to kind of remind us about the numbers of hours you've spent trying to patrol this area and what you've turned, kind of what the conclusion was that you've reached.
Sure. So the one thing I wanted to touch on first, in regards to the speed limit, if I'm not mistaken, the speed limit where the bulk of the residences are is 35. When you get north of there, where like the monastery is, you have the Holy Family Church, you have the monastery, and then you have their casket factory, and then I think the only other, if I can recall, the only other residence past the little dip area, there's a little cut in on the right that's got a couple houses back there, and then it's just the churches and the casket factory and Maureen Kennedy's house on the left side. But most of the residences, if I'm not mistaken, are in the reduced speed zone. As far as the Prairie Creek issue, yeah, I mean, we spent hours upon hours out on Prairie Creek Road trying to address complaints about trucks driving on Prairie Creek Road. For all the hours that we spent out there, probably well over 100, we only issued one citation, and unfortunately, that's kind of the issue when we get extra attention for speed, for semi-traffic, things like that. A lot of times the amount of time that we spend out there trying to find a violation and what we actually produce out of that are, they're not even comparable. It's very little productivity for the amount of time spent. And we looked at this as a way, as I think Harley mentioned earlier, when we were in discussions with FOBs over the Prairie Creek issue a year or so ago. We had talked to Anthony. It was the indication at the time that once the Southwest Arterial was open, that there would be at least some sort of restrictions released on Monastery Road that would help alleviate this situation. I understand Anthony's concern for the roads, and making sure that they last as long as they need to last. But we need to come up with some sort of a solution for this issue. We have a business owner who has this particular business, and he's kind of trapped in his location. So I know Anthony was talking about the possibility if Prairie Creek and McAndrews had been, or were at a point where they were upgraded, that there might be a possibility for them to run that way and bypass the bulk of the residences on the road. I guess I don't know where those roads are at as far as the maintenance plan, but I guess my thought would be, would there be a way that we could permit this until those roads were upgraded, and then once those roads were upgraded, then the FOBs could, then the permits would be rescinded, and the fobs would be permitted to drive the other two roads. Is that a possibility?
Just to give a little background, I've got McAndrews Road in for paving in fiscal year 24 and Prairie Creek Road in fiscal year 25. So we're talking 3 years out, we'll have both of those routes completed.
I mean, I know it's not ideal for everybody. I know that the neighbors may not like a few semis going by during the week, but let's be honest, there's semis going by there probably regularly that are doing it in violation. They're going across fully loaded. They're not local, so they have no investment in the community. They have no interest in obeying the speed limit or anything else like that. At least when you have a local company, you would hope that they would respect the fact that, you know, these are their neighbors' places that they're driving by, and they would be respectful of that. So those are the comments that I have on it.
Joe, this is Harley. There were several citations issued on Monastery Road, weren't there?
On Monastery, I think we've had a few. I don't know how many. That's not really something I didn't really look at Monastery stats when we were talking about this, because Prairie Creek is where we had the bulk of the focus as far as this particular issue with this trucking company.
Right. I'm just talking in general. We had, I recall that there were a number of citations issued for basically the truck route violation, or, you know, failure to obey the embargo thing.
Yeah,
and
Monastery was a little different situation though, because you know, Prairie Creek, we really only had one trucking company that was using it, and they have, you know, 4 or 5 trucks. So I mean, whereas the Monastery was more like I call it interstate traffic, you know, drivers coming up Highway 61 or 151 cutting across to 20 over by Piasta. So, you know, and those are trucks that are driving it fully loaded, you know. So you're talking about 80,000 pound load going across there, which I can understand that would definitely speed up the degradation to the road.
Right. That's what I was referring to, is that the Monastery was basically a shortcut for all the trucking firms, not just, you know, not Mr. Fob in particular.
Right. Yeah, but I unfortunately I don't have the stats for Monastery Road.
That's fine.
Well, we are at the 9 o'clock hour, so we will need to go into our formal Board of Supervisors meetings. And sounds like this issue is not resolved, Anthony. So I think we'll allow public comment as part of our Board of Supervisors meeting. So if folks will just, you know, hold on the line for just literally a moment or two, but looking forward to any action on this item. I think we're going to want to table this for the moment and meet again for further discussion. Just logistically, I can't think of another resolution. We're certainly not, I don't think, at resolution time. My colleagues, what do you think?
I would have to
I
agree.
think to go right into public comments would be wonderful. We have people that might want to speak, and it's perfect timing.
So we'll open the official Board of Supervisors meeting for May 3rd, and we'll begin our agenda with the opportunity for citizens to make public comment. If you wish to do so, because we are meeting virtually, there's a reactions button on Zoom to the bottom of your screen. You can raise your hand in that function. You can also enter a comment in chat, or you can, with your video on, just give a wave. I don't want to lose, we did have an individual, Mr. Marcus. I don't know, did we lose him? In any event, if there are citizens who wish to comment, please do so at this time. And we'd need your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. we'll begin with the gentleman who's raised his hand. It's under the name of Deborah Marcus, and you are unmuted. Cannot hear you at this time. Do you want to try again? I cannot hear him.
How about now?
There we go.
I'm
Very
sorry.
good.
Um,
Please give your
I'm-
name and address.
I'm Ryan Marcus. I live at 15094 Monastery Road. And I guess I'm going to speak in support of the special exemption for fob trucking. The speed limit in front of the house is that where all the residentials are is actually 40. It's not 35. It turns to 50 right before you get down to the monastery and the church. Once you start coming down that hill. Truthfully, when I got this letter, I went over to the intersection you guys are talking about, and because I hadn't been that way in a little while, I got a minivan. I pulled out. Somebody popped over that hill, and I had to get hoofing it to get out, to get up to speed before they got up my rear end there. So I could only imagine what it would be in a truck. So truthfully, if this exemption saves one accident, I really think that trumps, people going worried about the noise. Truthfully, this isn't going to be any different than what we experience on a day-to-day with cattle trailers and semis that aren't following the rules. This is just going to be normal, and I don't think it's going to be any different than what we see every day. So I just wanted to speak in support of that and say that I would support this exemption.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I don't see any other raised hands, nor comments in chat. I'll just wait another moment.
Yes, this is Justin Conley. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Connolly.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was on or not. My wife and I are against this permit for a number of reasons. Is the speed these semis go by, and the Jake brake issue. Another reason is our trucks, Conley construction trucks, our drivers don't even want to drive this road empty. And it just they just feel unsafe. Now we do local work on the road. We use it for that, but they do not like driving. They'll go to they've been going to Fillmore, come back in 151 to go to Skyline if we're going south to Macoka or DeWitt. And they started using the Southwest Arterial from our shop, which is on North Cascade Road. They go to Piazza N20, take the Southwest Arterial, and they come out in 61. They've been using that recently. And they feel it's much safer, a lot less issues. And it's kind of the opinion I got back from them. As far as there's like 17 landowners signed this petition, and that includes the Kennedy, Marine Kennedy out in the west end, Monastery, and pretty much everybody all the way through. There might have been 5 that didn't, and for whatever reason, that's fine. There's 3 or 4 people on Ryan Road. 2 of them have property that abuts Monastery Road, but their address is actually Ryan Road. And the rest of them are along Ryan Road next to Fob's. And that's kind of the petition, the rundown on that. I can send that to you. I guess I thought maybe you'd have it for the meeting. And basically that's about all I gotta say. If they're going out on 151 up where they're going now, and you pull out, you're in the right lane. That's a 4-lane highway, 151. If somebody comes over the hill, they have to move to the left lane to pass you. It's not a 2-lane highway where they're trapped behind the semi. So there's room for them to maneuver around. And I think that's about all I have to say, unless there's some questions.
Just for the record, could you give your name and address, please?
Yes, Justin Conley, 15182 Monastery Road.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Hi there, could I speak?
Of course, please give your name and address.
My name is Laura Hannon, and I live on 15049 Ryan Road, right next to the Fob Trucking organization. And I'll be honest, I'm supportive of it because I take the same route. I go the same intersection. You pull out on the road and there's a vehicle right there. Yeah, traffic can move into the other lane, but when you have a semi that's that long, you got to brake if a semi pulls out because it was clear and then all of a sudden you come over the hill. So I guess you really do have to kind of watch. I mean, it's complicated when you have a big vehicle versus a car. Okay, then the next thing is I live next to this organization and they go by my house every day, multiple trucks, and I don't even hear them. Now, I don't know if it's my insulation in my home or what it is, but noise should not be an issue. I guess shouldn't we be worried about safety versus noise? That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Laura. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Anna, AJ again here. I just want to make one more comment. It's not a good example, but it's right to safety. Good example of what happened up in Cox Springs there. There's a lot of visibility on Highway 20 up there. What just happened in the last couple of weeks there when that Horsfield truck was rear-ended. Now that guy's in Iowa City. How much safety, I want to deal with safety. I don't want to tear up my local roads. I live right by the road, been here my whole life, gonna be here my whole life. So now that it's redone, I understand everybody on that road would love to have a 60-foot wide, fresh paved road with no traffic. But sorry, go to a gated community if that's the case. This is a county road. Let's let the county make the decision. And let's talk about safety.
Thank you, AJ. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? This does not have to be comment about the FOB exemption request. This can be about any issue that is on the agenda. Hearing nothing further, I would thank everyone for their comments, and we'll move on with our agenda this morning. We do have a proclamation that has been presented to us, and I will read that into the record. Mental Health Month. Whereas Mental Health America of Dubuque County was founded over 60 years ago to serve the people of Dubuque County, and whereas Mental Health America brings together mental health providers, consumers, family members, advocates, and concerned citizens to serve as an effective voice for mental health in this area, and whereas the effectiveness is accomplished through a wide array of advocacy, collaboration, and educational activities responding to every aspect of mental health and brain health services in our area. Now, therefore, Dubuque County, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, staff, and citizens of Dubuque County, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2021 as Mental Health Month in Dubuque County, Iowa, and encourage the citizens of Dubuque County to congratulate Mental Health America and thank them for their many years of effective volunteer service to our community. Do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve the proclamation.
I will second.
A motion and a second to approve the proclamation. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, thank you. That motion passes unanimously. And at this time, we normally ask someone from that organization, and I know we have Sue Whitty with us from Mental Health America. And Sue, if you'd like to make some comment, please go ahead.
Thank you, Anne, for agreeing to make May Mental Health Month. Mental Health America National has been in existence since 1909, and 72 years ago, they began Mental Health Month. I would like to say too, Vicki Gassman is on this call. She works for VNA, and she is also on the Mental Health America board. And we appreciate your support of us in all ways, and additionally, your support of the mental health regions and your hard work, making sure that all the citizens of Dubuque County have access to care that they deserve and very much need.
Thank you.
You all lift a heavy load, and thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you, Sue. Your advocacy has been extraordinary as well, and your participation on behalf of the county and region. So thank you. And Vicki, appreciate you being here as well. Very good. We will move on the agenda. There are no consent items before us. We do have a request for quotes. We're looking for fuel for secondary roads. Oops, I'm sorry. We should probably approve the minutes. Did
And make a
everyone-
motion to approve the minutes.
And I will second that.
Motion a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Now we move to the request for quotes. Looks like we're looking for
I'll
sealed
make a motion.
quotes. Go ahead, Jay.
I will make that motion to request the quotes for, I believe I can read, they are due at 3 p.m. on Friday, May 21st.
And I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the request for quotes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. We do not have any scheduled public hearings or plot requests for approval. So we have, our next item is an action item, and we're looking at a request for an approval from the revolving loan for the Dyersville Farmers Community Fire Department. Yes, Tom Berger is with us, and Tom, I'd asked a couple questions of you in terms of loan balance, and if you can just give us some context for this this request.
Sure. The committee met, and we had an application on file for the Dyersville Rural Fire Department to purchase they're getting a new engine, and they're requesting $50,000 from the loan fund to be paid back on 5 years, interest-free at $10,000 per year. The loan fund before this has $82,000 in it, so the money is available for loan. Dyersville does not have another loan outstanding. The way the loan program works is we have fire and EMS loans lumped together, and each rural volunteer fire department or EMS agency can have a loan in each of the funds. So the funds are available, and I would request that you would approve. And answer any questions, obviously, with it, any additional.
I do not have any additional questions. Do we have additional questions? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion to approve.
I would make the motion to approve the loan to the Dyersville Community Fire Department.
And I will second that.
Motion a second to approve the resolution. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Thank you, Tom, for being present. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Tom.
Supervisors, yes.
Next on the agenda, under communications, we have received the letter that we are on shared screen from the city clerk regarding Sageville annexation. We would not anticipate taking any action, but rather just receive and file if we have that motion.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion to receive and file.
I will second.
Motion and a second to receive and file the letter from City of Sageville regarding annexation. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Appointments and open vacancies is listed as an agenda item. Did anyone wish to have any comment on that? We have been getting additional applications coming through. Tanya's been sending those out to us and updating that file box, I believe. Next, it would be personnel requisitions. We don't have any at this time. And nor do we have tabled and pending items that are presented. So we would look at another opportunity before we conclude our formal meeting for public comments, if anyone wishes to address the board on a matter that is of concern to them. You can raise your hand or enable your video to give a wave or enter a chat. I do not see any of those requests being made. So I would ask, our next work session is not until 10 o'clock this morning. We do have several items that we will be addressing still as the board. Our meetings will go until 11:30, but we are not scheduled until 10 o'clock this morning for a COVID update. So I would look for a motion to recess until that time.
If the board needs a recess, we can do that, but I think we still have the engineer's report, if that's a issue we want to address at this point.
We can go back and gather that, sure. What did you see, Jay? Just the items
There's
3
just
and
4
4
items, so
right.
it wasn't a lot of length. If Anthony was interested, I figured we could hit that unless we need to take a break.
Anthony, are you still with us? And is this a good time for you to look at items 3 and 4 on
Sure,
the
absolutely.
work session? Very good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot to discuss, but just some little bit of activity out there. Gun Club Road Bridge, Taylor Construction finished pouring the bridge deck and rails last week. So they're kind of coming towards the finish line. They'll be transitioning to backfilling and building the road approaches. Sundown Road paved shoulders, that's kind of our highlighted project going on right now. River City Paving is out there today, milling out and placing the asphalt shoulders as we speak. And we're expecting that to last about 4 to 5 days. So majority of it should be wrapped up this week. And that is a 1-lane situation with pilot car and flaggers. A little bit of update on Cedar Ridge Road paving. River City's planning to start work on the culvert replacements within the next couple of weeks. And then I think they're going to try to hold off until school's out around June 7th and start paving between Bud Road and Hills Mill Road. And then for maintenance, now that the asphalt plant is open, our staff is out working on patching potholes in roads. And we're also working on replacing deteriorated crossroad culverts. So, any questions?
How much longer on Gun Club Road, Anthony? Or?
They have quite a few working days left, but work-wise, if they stay on it, 2 to 3 weeks, they could have a lot of this wrapped up. But I think they are pretty motivated to get this one done, so they can kind of move on. And I think they have their sights set on Millville pretty quickly here.
I had a few questions on the length yet. Assume that I knew that the deck was poured and figured it wouldn't be just too much longer. So thank you.
Yeah. And that's really all I have.
Is there any comments or questions for Anthony under just general road discussion? Anthony,
I will make a motion to recess till 10.
I will second.
Motion a second till recess till 10. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, we are in recess. We'll be back here at 10 o'clock this morning. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Harley, can you give me a sound test? Make sure everything's still working.
You're doing great.
All right, thank you very much. Call the Board of Supervisors back into session for our 10 o'clock work sessions. We'll begin with a report concerning a COVID update. If we have members of the County Public Health Department present.
Good morning, Supervisor McDonough. This is Patrice.
Good morning.
Good morning. I believe Samantha is on, and I'm thinking that Stacy and Tom should be on, or else they'll be joining us. So I can begin if you would like.
Fantastic.
Okay, just to give you a real quick update on our percentages for our vaccination. I know you probably did see this on our daily update, but or I'm sorry, on our weekly update that we did send out on Friday. But we're a little over 60% of our total population 16 and older have either completed their series or else they are in the process. And with our 65 and older population, we are almost at 89% that they have either completed their series or that they are currently in their process. We are looking at creative ways to reach the people. And as you probably are aware, we have many walk-in vaccination sites that are available this week. We also have, we've started to advertise different locations beyond this week. So we're looking at different possibilities, such as we're using for one of our walk-in sites with a visiting nurse association. We're looking at the old Hoffman Schneider Funeral Home. We're looking at, again, through the VNA, looking at Kaminsky Park, Farley Memorial, the Salvation Army. We're utilizing the visiting nurse office itself. We're also working with our vaccine providers, looking at taking a mobile unit to the Food Truck Friday in Washington Park. We're also looking at starting as early as this Saturday, setting up a site with one of our pharmacies down at the farmers market. So we are really trying to reach the people where they're at. So we're looking at different areas, different events, different hours, different days, just so that people will have an opportunity that would fit their schedule and not fit the schedule that we've always had structured. You're probably aware as well that only 11 counties in the state of Iowa accepted the full vaccine allocation, and we were not one of them. We did see that from this past week, that we had plenty of Moderna and Pfizer on hand, but we did accept J&J. So again, all of our vaccine providers are aware that we still have plenty of vaccine on hand for this week. We'll do our evaluation to look at the allocation of vaccines for next week. Actually, we'll start looking at what our vaccine providers will want as early as our meeting this afternoon. So we're moving forward, and I guess at this point, I would just open it up to any questions that you may have for Stacy, Tom, Samantha, or myself.
Hi, Patrice, this is Harley. So we're not getting rid of our allotment, or?
No, the walk-ins have been slowing down. So we do still have Moderna and Pfizer on hand. And the Iowa Department of Public Health has asked all of the counties to be conscientious when we are going to be requesting vaccines. They don't want us to have like a large dose on hand, because they know that if we see that we are going to need more of any of the vaccine, we can request it from them. And more than likely, if they don't have it on hand, there would be other counties that we could request a transfer from that vaccine. So we are being conscientious in our ordering. We don't want to have a stockpile on hand. Because one of the reasons is basically because of the shelf life. You know, we don't want to have vaccine that might possibly expire before we can get it into the arms.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Patrice, in your written report, you state that the Iowa Department of Public Health has lifted the burn rate criteria. Can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. Up until last week, we were required for all of the vaccine that we did request with our allocation, it had to be placed in people's arms by Saturday evening. It also had to be recorded into our state program of IRIS by Saturday evening of the week that we received that allotment. If indeed we were less than 80% of a burn rate, Iowa Department of Public Health would have called us on Sunday, and they then would have asked for our rationale for not meeting that 80% burn rate. If they felt that our rationale was not acceptable, then we would not have gotten our next allocation for the week ahead of time, or for that next week. So now Iowa Department of Public Health fully understands that the vaccine rollout is really slowing down. So they want us to continue to receive vaccine, or to have vaccine on hand to be able to give it to people who are requesting the vaccines, and not worry that we're not going to meet that 80% burn rate. They have also informed us that we will be soon getting the official guidance that if we have to waste a dose, which we don't want to, but if we have to waste a dose, then we will not receive any sanctions for wasting a dose. So let's say that at one of our pods or one of our walk-ins, we had 4 people that walked in. Well, we know that we still have 2 doses left in that vial. If we can say that we did try and get 2 additional people for those other doses, and we were not able to do that, then we are okay without receiving any sanction of wasting those 2 doses. Again, the message has been quite open in telling us please try not to waste any doses. But if you have to, they would rather us not waste an opportunity to give someone a vaccine than to worry about wasting a dose.
Patrice, when might we be at the point where we can say that a vaccine is available always at fill in the blank, like perhaps the VNA? You could always go to the VNA to get a vaccine. Where is that ever going to happen?
Yes, it is. In fact, the incident management team just started that conversation last week, and we will be continuing that this week. We have already heard from some of our healthcare provider vaccine providers that they indeed, once the booster numbers have been met, and they're only looking at their patient or just a few walk-ins per day, they are already looking at ways to set up their offices for the walk-ins, as is, I know, Stacy and her staff at the VNA. We're still looking at that large number of people coming in for the boosters from the last 3 or 4 weeks. So we'll continue to keep our pods open just to make sure that we can get through those larger numbers with the boosters. But yes, we'll probably be seeing soon that we'll be looking at if our pods are even needed to be opened, or if we'll just be looking at walk-ins with the hospitals, the healthcare provider offices, our pharmacies, and our VNA, looking also at the possibility of increasing those event sites that we can go and reach the people out in the county.
Okay, and then you're mindful then of when these contracts could be terminated for the pods, right?
Correct.
The
Yes.
Kennedy Mall, and we have ongoing expense there, of course, and then also down at the Grand River Center. I've not had a report as to the level of vaccinations that are occurring at the Grand River Center with the drive-through.
Sure. Yes, we are very, very aware of that, and that's why we've started our conversation. And I know, well, do you know what? We'll get you a full report for the Grand River drive-through, and we'll get that to you. I apologize for that. I was thinking we had included that in our Friday update.
I don't recall seeing it.
No, and I don't think we did, but we'll get that from Corey Burbach, and we'll get that in. I apologize for that.
Well, and we have a Board of Health meeting this week, so perhaps you can have the update at that time as well.
Absolutely.
Supervisor Wickham, do you have any questions? We have a couple raised hands. If folks have questions.
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Auditor Dragato, did you have a question for Patrice?
I did. Thank you for indulging me. Hello, Patrice.
Hi there.
Have we received any guidance now that as a county and a number of businesses, we're looking at a vast majority of our staff is becoming vaccinated? What is the guidance if that vaccinated staff comes in contact with somebody who is COVID positive? I mean, I know that in the past we would take 5 days and then we would have to have that person come back with a negative test. I'm just curious, this is obviously for our organization, but other organizations throughout the county that are probably going to be experiencing this new issue where we have people who are fully vaccinated, they're after their 2-week issue, they're after their 2 weeks, so they're fully vaccinated. But then if they come in contact with or a known exposure to COVID, what is the procedure? What should we be looking for? How should we be treating that?
Sure. I can tell you that Iowa Department of Public Health and our Visiting Nurse Association are still doing the contacts for our positive. So just to be on the safe side that I don't forget any steps, I would just ask if Stacy Killian could please address that question, Kevin.
Stacy, are you with us from the VNA?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you address the auditor's question?
And the question, if I heard it correctly, Kevin, was that if somebody is fully vaccinated and they come in contact with someone who is COVID positive, what is their next steps? Is that correct?
That's correct. In the past, we were looking at a 5-day quarantine in order to be able to take a test no sooner than 5 days. And then that person would be able to return to work upon presenting a negative test.
A number of things would come into play here if they've been fully vaccinated. Has it been, 2 weeks past their, post second vaccine? And if they're fully inoculated, you would definitely want what type of exposure, how long were they exposed? Were they wearing a mask? So I think a lot of it depends on individual. I know when looking at someone who's vaccinated, if they have come in contact but have not developed symptoms, they can self-monitor in certain situations as well. So I would still recommend if you do have a situation like that, and that's what we've kind of encouraged a lot of areas, schools and businesses and things to call us, because there's a lot of factors in there. It's definitely not across the board, but there is a lot of guidance on the CDC and Iowa Department of Public Health with their COVID. But in general, if they're not experiencing symptoms and they have not, again, without knowing how close of a contact they've been, I hesitate even answering it because I think it's just so variable.
Let's assume the person is fully vaccinated after the 2-week period, and let's assume that the contact is within a household, somebody you're living with for greater than 24 hours a day. Does the vaccine does not prevent us from becoming carriers of COVID? Is that true or false?
I wonder, Kevin, if this isn't a better discussion to have with Dawn Sherman. Sounds like the answer to the question is if something occurs, call the VNA or call your HR department, because it's not going to be a simple answer. So we'll have to kind of walk through it at different levels. Is that okay with you?
That's fine. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. All right. And Diane, did you have a question, Diane Freiberger?
Yes, I did. Patrice, are we still seeing a large number of our positive COVID individuals testing positive? Are they still in the younger group?
Let's see, Samantha, are you able to pull up today's current? It has been, Diane. And
Okay.
To save time, we can also update you at the Board of Health meeting on Wednesday, but it has been in that 18 to 40-year-old age group. I don't know.
I'm sorry, that's leading into what my question is. And
I'm sorry.
That is, have you addressed vaccinating the high schoolers? Because 16 on up are can be vaccinated with the Pfizer. Have you has the incident management team addressed that at all?
Yes, we have. We actually had looked at all of our numbers last week, and we have approximately a third of our 16 and 17-year-olds that have either started the vaccination or have currently completed it. We have, we're looking at approximately 2,690 16 and 17-year-olds in Dubuque County. And out of that number, when we were looking at this last week, we had 886 of those individuals, that the 16 and 17-year-olds, that were either fully vaccinated or had started the process. So yes, we are looking at, again, targeting areas that we can meet those 16 and 17-year-olds. So
Very
right
good.
now we're about a third of the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrice.
Sure.
Are there other questions from the supervisors? Supervisor Potok, Supervisor Wickham, do you have any other questions for the incident management team and Patrice?
I do not.
Do not.
Very good. Thank you, Patrice. Do you think that do you feel the report from the team is complete?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We do like to keep the report brief so that you can be on to all the other things that you do. So thank you very much. Very good. We'll move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is a wonderful hello to our administrator at Sunnycrest Long-Term Care Center. It's wonderful, Danny, to see you in that seat and on our window box to see you there. So very good. You're unmuted. If you would like to, I have some clapping happening, some virtual clapping happening to greet you as well. So, and then there's another. So do you want to say a very short introduction?
Good morning. It's nice to be here. This is my 4th day, so my first 3 days were really great. So been quite busy just trying to acclimate myself to the building. So which is not easy. We did have some updates from IDPH, which we have a call today about testing vaccinated staff proactively, which is not a requirement anymore. Now that does change if somebody were to be symptomatic or if somebody were to be like exposed or whatnot. So, and we look at that obviously individually too. So the other thing is we have another COVID vaccination clinic here. So all but 2 of our residents are vaccinated. So that's really, really great news. I would like to do a campaign to get all of our staff vaccinated because there are some changes that we can make if we could get all of our staff vaccinated, which would be really good for the residents here. And we'll try as hard as we can to get that done.
Phenomenal. I know I was at an RTA meeting, which is the transport authority that does some of our driving for people. And the drivers were saying if we could do a little bit more testing and do just a little bit better in the long-term care centers in the county overall, they as drivers wouldn't need to be tested so frequently. Folks don't, understand that just everyday citizens who come into contact with long-term care centers end up being tested frequently with the nasal swabs because of factors that they don't get to control. So
yeah, and it would be nice if the county understood as far as even all of the long-term cares in the county, it does go by county positivity rate and things, but I know it's one more thing to try to explain to everybody. And I think the vaccinations is the biggest thing that we can promote at this point. I think I've been tested about 70 times at least 70 times from the beginning of this. So I'm pretty used to that. So it doesn't really bother me anymore.
Right. But IDPH just considers you one person.
Yes, that is correct. So I'm negative until I'm positive. So, but the county positivity rate, it did spike a little bit there to 9.4%. Last week, it was 7.1%. So currently we are testing once a week our unvaccinated staff. So like I said, if they were to become exposed or if they were to be symptomatic, we would obviously test them right away. If we were to have an outbreak, which is one person in the entire building, resident and or staff, we would then go ahead and start our outbreak testing. So, and that's for 2 weeks, we test every 3 to 7 days.
Very
So,
good.
Yep.
Well, wonderful to see you. And do either of my colleagues have questions or comments?
Oh, wonderful to see you there, Danny. I hope you enjoy the position, and I'm sure you're going to do great.
Yeah, everybody was very welcoming to me. So it was so neat to come in and they had stuff ready for me, like some things I had requested. So that was really awesome to have everybody have all the papers that I kind of wanted to start reading through. I did not have time my first 3 days to read those though. So we'll get there. So it'll take me a couple weeks to get acclimated to everything and then we'll go from there. It's going to be great.
Super.
Welcome to Sunnycrest. Welcome to Dubuque County.
Thanks.
Very good. Well, we will also let you, Danny, go on with your very, very busy day. Please know that I think I speak for my colleagues. We're a resource for you, and we look forward to working with you for the success of Sunnycrest, because Sunnycrest success is really the county's success. So we appreciate all that you're doing and all that's yet to come. So
thanks. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you, Danny.
All right, moving on to our work session with the budget director. Hello, Stella. I was expecting to see you all tan and everything after your trip to the sun. So
this is me at tan.
Very good. Well, welcome. And I'm going to just turn this right over to you. It's time for us to have a work session about the budget with the budget director about the American Rescue Plan.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I put a memo in the packet for all of you, and I'll kind of walk through that a little bit. And the purpose of this is we haven't yet started this conversation as a group on the American Rescue Plan Act. So it's time for us to start these conversations and look to what Dubuque County would like to do with these unprecedented funds in this opportunity. Thank you, Dawn, for sharing that. So we know on March 11th that President Biden signed this American Rescue Plan Act into law. So it's a total of a $1.9 trillion law. Of that, there is $65.1 billion in direct federal aid to the counties. It's unique because under the CARES Act, we did not get direct funding. It went through the states. So this is wonderful that the federal government listened to the counties in the fact that we needed the direct funding to us. It's to respond to COVID-19's public health emergency or the negative economic impacts. And like I said, 65.1 billion to counties, but of course there's many, many other pieces of this bill with funding, state and local fiscal recovery, direct financial assistance, many things that are listed here. We expect this first tranche, they list it as a tranche of funding in the bill, to happen within 60 days of the enactment. So we're estimating by about May 11th, on or around May 11th, that we would get 50% of our allocation. The second tranche would come at least 12 months after the first. We must spend these funds by the end of calendar year 2024. So we have a little bit of time to work through this. Dubuque County is anticipated to receive about $18.8 million. So we'll be getting 50% of that in the first tranche, the rest in the second tranche. I also put in here the estimated funding to Dubuque County and all the cities located within Dubuque County is approximately $49 million. So there's quite an influx of funding coming into our area. And every county and city around us, surrounding us, will also be getting funding. So it's up to you as the Board of Supervisors to help determine what the highest and best use of this funding is going to be. How do we position the county long-term to show that we are using this money wisely and servicing the citizens of the county? So I put in here the allowable uses of the funding. So I'll just walk through those quickly. They are to respond to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19 or its negative economic impacts, respond to workers performing essential work during COVID-19 by providing premium pay to eligible workers of the county, provide government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue, and to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So they're very broad, and we don't have any guidance yet from US Treasury. So that's expected to come down in the next couple of weeks, hopefully before the funding comes out, but we don't know exactly what guidance we'll have and what the process will be, if they'll push the funds to us or if we'll have to do something to pull them down, but more anticipated in the next couple of weeks. But we know that we'll have to do a lot of monitoring and tracking of these funds and how we spend them and what we do with them. We got the pre-award release, pre-award requirements were released April 15th, which Dubuque County currently has all of those requirements in place. So we're ready to receive funding as soon as we learn more about how that will actually occur. Like I said, the US Treasury has very little guidance so far, but other organizations have been working through guiding principles and best practices, and I'm monitoring those as they come down and watching that information. So I put some in here. I won't necessarily walk through all of this, but this was from GFOA, which is the government finance organization. So their points were that these funds are temporary, so it's a non-recurring. So it should be applied to primarily non-recurring expenditures. We should be aware of plans for the funding throughout our communities. So it's important to try to be aware of what others are doing, not just ourselves. And also take time in consideration. This is coming in 2 tranches. It's supposed to last till the end of 2024, or must be used by the end of 2024. So to take time and thoughtfully develop what we want to do with these funds. So that's the summary of the memo I put in the packet. Are there any questions from the supervisors? What I just went through?
Stella, I just have another context question. Since the rescue plan was enacted, actually probably right before it as well, what have you begun to do you know, other than this memo, what else are you doing or working on that gives us, you know, kind of how you see the Dubuque County response or context for involvement?
Sure. So I have gathered a small working group of some county officials to start to determine how we as a county work through this and move forward. So the thought is to start to develop these big ideas and plans. And really, I can tell you that how I envision this kind of unrolling would be that this working group continues to meet and develop themes or kind of big ideas that continue to come up. At some point here, we need a timeline of when those come to the supervisors for determination, approval, priority setting. I think it would be really beneficial if the supervisors could come up with, you know, 4 to 8 themes of priority of what you want to work on funding. And then we work to develop within those. Then the working group continues to develop within those pieces, the actual projects or the actual action items. So I think we could work for the next couple of months, I would say by July, August timeframe, determining what those big priorities of the county are. And then the board would set those priorities. And then the working groups would continue working with stakeholders within each of those items to develop further what the actual projects are. And probably in conjunction with the budget timeframe, starting to set funding for some of those projects and then begin execution. So we know, you know, we have a couple of years, but we don't have unlimited time. So we need to take a few months, determine what it is that we want to do, and then execute that over the course of a couple of years.
Stella, if I look at just one example, so I'm just going to, you know, something that I work on passionately is brain health. So when I look at that, the funding that we have received as a county, that's, I'm going to call that one bucket of funding or one avenue of funding big ideas with regard to brain health. Are you also, or who is looking to see if we can get some of this other billions of dollars for public health? I mean, how is the county going to be in a position to pull down the extraordinary amount of federal dollars? I mean, we don't know for sure what the state's planning to do, but are you planning to get us organized to bring down many, many more millions?
Yes, so the representatives on that working group right now include our health department, our mental health department, emergency management, to help start looking at that. Because you're right, not only do we have the 18.8 million estimated directly to Dubuque County, but there's going to be opportunity to try to pull down other grant funding as this develops. So we think that the more we have our ideas developed, the better chance we'll have to obtain any of this funding as guidance unrolls.
You know, the city of Dubuque, in some of their workshops that I've been attending, they're stressing, you know, the idea of certainly economic impact, but also equity, that the administration is looking at through equity lens for impact for all Americans throughout the country, but also, you know, as we look at any of the projects that we do at the county level need to have an equity, an integral part, not an add-on or just a word in the title, but truly equity lens. And I'm a little concerned that I don't think that as a county government we've intentionally or ever formally done that. I don't know, I don't think we've disregarded it. I just think it hasn't been front and center. So I would, you know, well, we will need to plan to address equity as well in anything that we do. And then of course, climate. We don't mean to make that least, but also if, you know, that is what the city is stressing as they put together their applications for those many, many, many other millions as well. looking at that. So, and collaboration, how can we, I think you addressed that here too. How do we work with all of our partners to enhance the funding that we've already been, that we hope that we're going to be given. So.
Yes, all very wonderful, valid points.
Yeah, Stella, thanks for organizing this. It's going to be hopefully a significant game changer and excellent opportunity for us to make strides where we would not be able to make such large strides without this type of funding. So it's very pleased that we're given this opportunity. One of my questions is, do we have a breakdown right now of maybe the first starting point of areas of deficit that we saw during the pandemic? And so either lost revenues or additional costs. So for example, let's say the local option sales tax that roads normally receives was 10% down. Do we have that deficit number? And then secondly, do we have the number of increased spending? So about a year ago, I think we appropriated about $400,000 to the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque for various charity items. And then the other third part of the equation is what we received from either CARES or state or federal funding to backfill those things I just mentioned. And so that would leave us with what currently has been a deficit or an increased cost. And that would be the first area that I would look for, making sure that we completed that funding.
Yes, so we have been tracking that. I don't have it prepared to present today, but I will get it into a form to show the board exactly where we stand there.
Very good, thank you.
And Stella, how often do you wish to report to us? This is a major undertaking, and I would like to have you frequently before us, but that doesn't give you a bunch of time to do all the work that you need to do if you're,
sure,
appearing at these meetings.
I think initially we're hoping to have some guidance in the next couple of weeks. So I think the next point would be to discuss what that is when it comes down. The working group will continue working on developing these ideas and determining kind of the themes that reoccur to help frame that for the board, to say, here's the big things that keep coming up. Maybe these are the priorities, of these things. What priorities does the board have? Right? Because it will be your guidance that moves those forward,
Right.
I think that maybe in 2 to 3 weeks, maybe by the end of the month, we should discuss again, just to see what has occurred from Treasury and if funding has come down.
Right. So I know that, I have seen early drafts of 2 huge big ideas that I think we've got some amazing, we just have some amazing people at the county. I see Ann Cameron Williams here in a window that she's never been formally introduced to the Board of Supervisors, though we've met her in interview situations. Big ideas. Patrice Lambert hitting something out of the ballpark. She and Samantha drafting a big idea. They don't want to share them publicly, but I'm thinking that those have trickled on to you, and I see a box fully pictured here of Nathan Gilmore, who's going to be before us. Yes, waving his hand, smiling. Who's going to be before us still on our agenda this morning with some items. So I know there are people who feel energized by the task of big ideas. Whom else is in this? Public safety is here as well, and I know they're working on some big things also.
So I can tell you who's in the working group right now. The representatives that have been asked to participate so far. It would be myself, Dawn Sherman, Patrice, Ann Cameron, Nathan, Joe Kennedy, and Tom Berger. So they were all identified as directly impacted by the bill. And you're right, there's great big ideas starting to develop. And that's what I would like to see our group continue to do, to get those ready in a format to present to the board of big ideas and things that could be done with this to allow the board then to determine where they would like to see everything go. And other ideas that you all have, of course.
So, I guess I got a call from a citizen who asked me to put their road on our list of roads they want, that there's this I guess that maybe it's, I don't know where it's coming from, but that we're taking like names and projects that we can spend this money on. And I assured the citizen that we weren't taking, road names. We talked about their specific road issues, but I'm just wondering how are we, I'm glad we're here today, but what is going to be our messaging to the community and to the county? The communities, the cities are going to be getting funding as well. I know Holy Cross, I think, is getting $50,000 or $80,000. It'll come from the state, through the state. But what should be our messaging? I'm feeling a little bit that we might be behind on that.
Is that a question for the board or for Stella?
All of us, I think. This is the first time we've been able to talk about it with three people, the three of us present.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a message. So that would be the good starting point. And I think that needs to come from the leadership group that we have presented here. I think with that is probably, the timetable and then ultimately the priorities that we feel we're going to, start the funding and allocation for. And so if you can kind of talk about, how soon you'd like to develop your plan and what that process is, and then when you'd like to be finished with that planning process, I think that's important to know. And then secondly, identifying obviously the priorities, the high level, and either the buckets or the areas that you are looking to fund projects or fund priorities with. Those would be the two I would like to start with, and then a lot more detail following.
Harley, what are your thoughts?
Well, without the guidance from the Treasury, it's kind of hard to even get focused on a general direction, because the guidance that's out right now is pretty vague. Obviously, we have to set our priorities and look where we want to, what funding we're going to direct where. It's just going to be tough until we get all of the guidance from the Treasury on where the money or how the funds can be spent. I think, as it usually goes, you make your plans and then you find out that, well, you can't spend the money on that, so you're back to square one again. So like Stella said, in 2 to 3 weeks, she's hoping that it would be out. I think that would be a good starting point. Is okay, now we know at least how it can be spent or where it can be spent.
If we're going to, if as a group, as a board, we decide we're going to actively look for matching dollars or the federal dollars, I think we should at some point be discussing the need for a grant writer. How would we do that? How would we implement those things? We run our staff pretty lean at the county, and by design, to keep things up front and costs down. But I am concerned that we're going to miss opportunities if, I don't know how it's all going to fit, but we have a comprehensive plan from that was just completed by conservation. Does any of that apply? I mean, that was probably our #1 usage of resources, was the exponential growth in recreation and conservation. I don't want to lose sight of that, because it's not you would have to make an argument that is part of the recovery funds that we need, and of course our health department itself. So, but what are your thoughts generally about interest in a grant writer on the horizon?
I think you bring up a good point. I think one of the opportunities that we have during this period of funding, which Stella reminded me, is it through 24 or 23, the funding?
24.
For 24. So you have a series of years where you potentially could bring on people on a contractual basis or a grant application basis to get the things done that you want to get done, and not add for, you know, a full-time employee long-term that we typically do in our personnel requisitions. So I would be definitely in favor of that. And that probably goes back to just, you know, getting organized, is that, you know, what are those needs that we have to create the plan, to go after additional funding, to develop those priorities. And if that is an additional staff member, most likely obviously would be covered by this funding, get that in place, but make sure that the intent is that it is short term, and it is, you know, to design to stay within the boundaries of this grant that we've been allocated.
Stella, do you have questions for us?
I think what I would like just your consensus on is that I would continue working with this small working group, developing ideas as we move forward. I would like to set priorities probably by July, August timeframe. So maybe by the end of August, we'll have the big priorities set. And then we'll continue to develop within those priorities what the projects will be within those priorities, and align that likely with year end and budget to make sure that we're Sorry, go ahead, Jay.
Sorry, Stella. So thank you. Yeah, I think that's, you know, I would definitely be in favor of having that group assembled. But with that, I would like to know the time frame, and you're kind of mentioning some of those, the time frame that things are going to be accomplished. And then secondly, what would be the overall objective of the group? And it doesn't have to be a long dissertation, but if we could get a 1 or 2 pager that talks about the members, generally the meeting, the cadence of those meetings, and then what are the outcomes? So when are we going to have things done, and what would those things be?
My comment would also be, and please, Jay and Harley, you know, your core group, I think, is tremendous talent there. But there are some, such as Brian Preston. I mean, there's some people that Anthony Bargett. I mean, there are some people who can generate big ideas and who understand the needs of the county in a different way. I am wondering if if it's possible to have a longer department head meeting, which I know you have on Tuesdays, to kind of maybe let some free flow of ideas, or don't keep anyone out from submitting a big idea. You know, all of our talent is in place because they've got that ability. I think, you know, why are you keeping it so small?
Absolutely. I don't want it to come across as the intent is to stifle ideas from anyone. We welcome ideas from anyone. The thought behind a smaller working group was just to keep it more manageable. And also with organizing meetings and such, it's slightly easier with a smaller working group. Of course, we can add in those members. I think Anthony and Brian would be wonderful additions, and I can reach out to add those two to our working group. But of course, I think it would be good to have guidance from the board. Do you want any ideas to come funneling, you know, through funneled to the working group for then further development? I think that's an important point, you know, as people are have questions or want to raise an idea, you know, where does it go?
To you.
I would think that funneling them through you would be the proper channel. Have the working group, you know, go through. Hopefully we get a lot of ideas. You know, we get people thinking outside the box and come up with some, you know, brainstorming and just come up with some ideas. That it's kind of how good things get started.
Yeah, this is such a unique opportunity to make real long-term change within our county. I mean, this is just kind of an unprecedented time and opportunity. So I think it's wonderful.
For me, I mean, my own personal philosophy about this is that these are dollars that are once in a generation, and they can be used for change as we rebuild and we rescue, right? So I don't see them so much as certainly it's budget recovery and it's economic recovery, but it's not budget extenders. I wouldn't want to just see it be like, well, we could do one more of. I would like to see it be the kind of thing we could look back in the, 10 years, 20 years in the future and say, those were American Plan Rescue dollars that we did that with. And that would be my vision of this. Leaving some time here for my colleagues to other directions or comments.
I think the comment I would have, I do like the thought of the working group that Stella had mentioned, trying to keep it small. I think we have public forums each week where anyone, whether you're an employee or whether you're a citizen or both, can make comments. What I would be looking for is sometimes all governments, not Dubuque County, can be a little bloated and a little slow and sometimes not as responsive. And so for at least the planning side of it, and so just the organization, not necessarily talking about a specific project, but the planning side, I'd like us to see us to be nimble, create some documents, get some structure to the time frame of how decisions are going to be made, and then let me rephrase that, the time frame of what we look at for the next 4 years and how that might play out, and then the big buckets of opportunities of funding, and just start to put some structure in how that the public can engage, and then obviously the supervisors can continue to be part of that. I wouldn't like it to be a group that goes away and we don't hear from you for 2 months. I'd like updates and responsiveness at least every 2 weeks at a minimum.
So I think what I'll do is put a work session out for 2 weeks from today. Hopefully we'll have some more guidance and information by then. I'll work on the question that Supervisor Wickham asked about the tracking of deficit and increased spending, have something to show on that side of where we are. And then we'll continue working on the timetable, the plan for the group, and firm that up a little bit more in a document for you.
That would be great.
Yeah, looking at the first and the third board meetings of the month might be a good time for those kinds of updates. I mean, this morning our official meeting was, another 20-minute meeting. So, if we want to put something that's even before the 10 o'clock COVID update, if a work session, I think we could probably build some of that in, but it's an exciting opportunity. And I don't want citizens to think there's not opportunity for their comments. I was at a meeting a few weeks ago on childcare, and the question was, can the county help? With our rescue plan dollars, could we be matches for things? And I know as the city of Dubuque looks at high level things, can we work collaboratively and be matches for each other? Sunnycrest there might be big ideas there that are waiting for this very opportunity.
I think the other piece we touched on that maybe we could have a little more conversation on, or your group could consider as well, Stella, is how we do relate to other governments. We have the blessing that we have 21 other smaller communities in our county. And not obviously only City of Dubuque will receive direct funding, but the other ones will receive funding from the state of Iowa. And then, how do we relate with them about what we're doing and our ideas, and then also try to engage them on what are their needs and ideas? Because the funding that, comes to Dubuque County is to represent the whole county.
We could, in theory, and this is brainstorming, so it's worth about exactly a minute and a half, I guess. But if we had, like we did with the Tom Hancock grant, we could be setting aside some significant dollar amount that might get to be able to match. Not to say it's a guarantee, but that it's that, you know, there's a possibility that we could assist them with some match as well. You know, just a thought that we could just set those dollars aside.
Mhm. And then Stella, a question for you, maybe within your group, who is going to be, who or whom, the one or two, quote, experts on, you know, rules and regulations? So I made a comment, and then my esteemed colleague, Representative Eisenhart, said, no, small cities do get direct funding in chat. So, you know, just someone that can, you know, really understand the law and then interpret the guidance and read those. So somebody that loves procedure, written rule, a written word, I think would be very helpful on that team.
One of the things I would say, and this would be to, you know, to Representative Eisenhart, who's been chatting, is that there's been questions that have come in, and ECIA is all over this, and they have already been out and in contact with every one of our cities. So they, you know, I think they're offering their expertise, and the dollar amounts that have been listed in the rescue plan, those have been identified by ECIA and written in correspondence to the mayors. So, you know, I had one inquiry from a mayor, and ECIA just, I mean, responded with an abundance of information. So we could work with them. And I think there's also a need to be, you know, to be partners with ECIA to make sure that we're all of our communication avenues are working for the 21 cities. And still, I think you have the list too as well of how much funding each of the cities will receive. That's been generated. I think I've seen that 3 or 4 times.
I have it here if you would like me to project it while we discuss it.
Yeah, and my comment would be, question was, well, how does that get to them? Is it just a blank check that flies out from the state, or do they have to show projects, or, you know, what is the process for that funding to actually occur? Since my understanding, it wasn't direct funding.
Right. I think that what I've heard is the legislature is going to take it up. Not the legislature, sorry, they're going to go out of session when they finish the budget. The governor's going to take it up after the session ends with however the rescue plan will be handled at the state level. So that will be an unfolding conversation. This is the listing here, Stella. Go ahead.
Yes, I pulled this data down from, I believe, NACO.
So that's from the National Association of County Organizations.
Yeah. So all of these are estimated. It will be determined by Treasury, the final amounts. But this is what's estimated to go to cities within Dubuque County.
So in addition to Dubuque County's funding, you're looking to close to $50 million.
30 million total.
Well, what's Dubuque, the county allocation?
The county allocation is 18.8, so close to 50 million. You're right, sorry.
That's big money. That's significant opportunity.
Right. It's an amazing opportunity.
I'm sure there'd be a lot of opportunity to work with the small towns throughout the county for joint projects to get some big things done. So
yeah, it might be worth when they have the next mayor's meeting. You know, ECIA convenes those. I mean, we could think about you know, they convene them, but we could think about a meeting notice and be present to be engaged as a board of supervisors with the mayors.
I like the idea. I would like to be welcome to that meeting, or at least to ask permission. So if it's their meeting, so if they would like us to be there and to understand, have us relay information on how we plan to proceed, I think that would be really good.
Right.
Okay, so if anybody else would like to make, any of the other board members would like to make comment, Otherwise, I'll plan a work session for 2 weeks from today to discuss those items that I listed before, and then we'll keep our working group moving.
Yeah, and I like Supervisor McDonough's idea of the first and the third meeting that kind of just sticks in your head, and so we know what to expect, and you don't have to ask, when are you reporting to us?
Yep. We'll plan it for that.
Or let me rephrase that, when we're meeting as a group.
Another thing I would mention is if we do anticipate that we're going to go at this in a way that we're going to need a grant writer, we just need to be aware that the ability to hire, I mean, everybody is scrambling for grant writers. The city of Dubuque was taking names of citizen volunteers who have grant writing experience. So I'm just going to do a shout out to our hire, Ann Cameron Williams, who is our Director of Disability Services and also the coordinator for the region that we hired just 2 months ago. She has extensive experience with federal grant writing and federal administration. So while that's not the purpose of the hire, it certainly was part of a skill set. And she's coming on board with some really big ideas as well. So Harley and Jay know, just to remind ourselves of that caliber of person that we have as an asset for us.
Definitely.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Ann, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. And I just want to thank you for those kind words, and I'm happy to serve in any way that I can for any project. So just ask. I'll roll up my sleeves and be there.
Thank you, Ann.
All right, Stella, final words. Clock just turned to 11 a.m.
Well,
anything to wrap up?
Just thank you. We'll continue. There's going to be a lot of work done on this, and I think it's just a wonderful opportunity. So I'm looking forward to it.
Got a good team in place. Thank you for the initial discussion. I appreciate the comments from my colleagues as well. It helps move everything forward if we can have this conversation.
Thank you, Stella.
Very good. We will yield the floor to our technology director, Nathan. Your name wasn't mentioned other than a few times, but I know you have something before us today that you wanted to address.
Hey, good morning, Board of Supervisors. So this goes back to the budget process during January. During that cycle, I had given several options for getting fiber deployed to some of our county locations. And fast forward to now, I would prefer not to get some of the more paperwork sides of this, wait till July. I'd rather get that moving before the fiscal. And of that documentation, contracts, agreements, this is the first piece of it. Now, just be clear, this is a work session to talk about this document, and then my hope is we can put it on for signature at a future meeting, ideally a week from now, but just depends on questions and feedback. So this is the master services agreement, and what that means is it just gives the guardrails, it gives the requirements of both entities, in this case, City of Dubuque and Dubuque County. Spells out what we're allowed to do, what they're allowed to do. It just sets the rules for the game. So it's a successful partnership going forward, since these are multi-year commitments from the county. And then, the city also uses these agreements to help plan strategically where they may be putting the investments that they might get from this. So this does not commit us to any specific locations. This is just the top level document that gives the roles. If this is signed, then what would come before the board over the next, several weeks, maybe months, would be amendments to this agreement that then spells out the locations. So location A, location B, 1 pair of fiber. This is the total distance. This would be the, 3-year commitment up front from the county to the city to lease that pair of fiber. Once this is done, once Board of Supervisors signs this, it will then flip to City Council for their review and signatures. This is nearly identical to what the city has entered into with other groups. So I would not expect the city to reject this or have any concerns with it once it's flipped over to them. I have had CJ County Attorney review this. His response was included in your packet. It's in good standing order from his view. I don't see anything in my review of it that makes me pause or concern. It's pretty gentleman's agreement type boilerplate. Like, we're not going to go into their pop without letting them know. They're not going to come into any of our pops without letting us know. We agree to carry insurance, as do they. It's kind of boring, but it needs to come first. And it would be the start of entering into formal agreements to connect some of our locations up using city fiber.
I'll jump in. One, obviously connecting fiber and high-speed internet's been very topical at both the state and the federal level, and part of the rescue plan is dedicated to that funding. So we might be learning more about this over the next year or so. My question to you, Nathan, would be, maybe can you describe what infrastructure the city currently has and why we're interested in that and how it would help? And then secondly, kind of, what are we paying for, or what is the ultimate costs and then the benefits?
Okay. So over the last 10 plus years, might be going back further than that, but the city, generally speaking, for most sidewalk and road projects, they install conduit. And then during that last decade or so, they install multipath conduit, which has multiple channels within that ductwork. The premise being then that the city will put their fiber in one of the channels, and then the other 6 are available for municipalities or private sector or internet providers to lease. Someday that could potentially be of value to the county, but as for right now, I'm not proposing that we lease a channel in the conduit and install our own fiber in it. I am proposing that we lease a pair of city fiber. We don't need 72 pairs of fiber between us and Sunnycrest. One is sufficient. To hook up locations that we currently do throughout the county, generally speaking, we pay some sort of internet provider, whether it's Imon or Macocata Valley. They provide an internet drop at that location. We then put a small firewall out there that then communicates back over the public internet to our big firewall, setting up what's known as a site-to-site VPN. That then, from a network and security standpoint, makes it to where it appears as one network. The downsides of that, though, is that you now have introduced another single point of failure. So, while we try to have reliable internet providers, we're not going to be able to pay to have an enterprise class internet drop at every single location. Like, that's not realistic. So those internet providers do sometimes drop, which means that VPN then goes down. They don't get the speeds and the latency because it's an internet provider and it's going out over the public internet and then back down to the county and then to our data center. That's how we do most of the locations currently. If we have the opportunity to do what is referred to as layer 2 fiber. So direct fiber. You shine a flashlight on this end, that light comes out at this end. There's no electronics in between. You're not going out to the public internet. It is direct. Anytime we have the opportunity to do that, we should explore it very thoroughly because the advantages are significant. There's very few single points of failure because literally unless the fiber gets cut, you're not going to go down. It's just the way it works because it's a direct line. There's no electronics in between. You're not going out of the public internet. There's not a second internet provider. There's no firewall at that location because now you're directly using the big firewall at the courthouse. In addition to that, you're going to have much, much higher speeds. I mean, 10 gig, that's 10,000 megabits per second versus most of the locations are 150 megabits. And even more important than the speed is what's known as latency. So if you say ping google.com, the response that comes back is latency, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50. Like right now I'm pinging Farley on one of my screens right now. It's 54 millisecond. That's not great. I mean, it works, but hypothetically, if we had this arrangement with Farley, that would realistically be 2 or 3 millisecond. That's a significant difference when it comes to how applications perform. So everything that you do then is snappier. Everything that you're doing with a database is not going to time out if you're pressing it too hard. City assessor, in their case, we've gotten some workarounds to make it work better for them. But their applications that they share with the county assessor did not perform very well going over the public internet over a site-to-site VPN. If we ever do get fiber to those locations in this arrangement, I'm not going there right now, but that would eliminate that. So finally then cost. In the end, it's going to be cheaper for some of these locations. After the initial investment in coordination, it'll be the same or cheaper in almost all these instances for these locations.
Nathan, in the document before us, there's strike through language. That must have been done by the city then when they sent this over to you.
Yeah, I think there are some track changes on this. I switched mine to no track changes when I submitted it, but it appears it still kept it when it sent it to you. So whatever the board would prefer, I can certainly print this to PDF and send it so you have the clean version. Certainly though, before any signature would come on, this would have that 100% cleaned up.
Right, but I guess maybe I should have been more clear. We haven't been doing any negotiating. They've just simply sent to us their rather standard document for this purpose, strike through, putting in county language and
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have worked with Dave Lyons at GDDC to get an understanding of how this relationship develops and works, but I have not negotiated with them. They have just converted whatever language would be appropriate to change now that it's a county document partnership that would have come from the city.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing in here that you're recommending be addressed like that.
No.
I'd be interested in knowing, one, how many agreements the city of Dubuque has entered in related to their fiber use. And then secondly, is there been any governmental entities that they've entered into, which I think would be, so maybe Asbury or other adjoining communities. But that'd be
Nathan?
My interest.
Nathan, this is Dave Lyons. I'm on the call if you'd like me to handle those.
If you have that information handy, that'd be fantastic.
Go ahead, Dave.
Sure, thank you. Supervisors, the city has 9 master license agreements that are 99% similar to this. They are primarily with private entities like IMON or CenturyLink or Comelec. There are some governmental entities like the Iowa Communication Network that it is working with. And the Iowa Department of Transportation has a slightly different version because it relates specifically to certain things like the Mississippi bridges. So this has been around for a couple of years. Nathan was absolutely correct. We've changed a few things which don't make sense, governmental entity to governmental entity. The insurance language, for example, you would see some changes in, and the reporting process. So, but again, Nathan is correct. This is kind of a model we've used, slight alterations to understand how the city and the county will work together after Nathan has chatted with me about the county's needs. And he's absolutely correct that as well. This basically sets out the, you know, kind of the boilerplate of relationships and the actual content of a relationship, the when, the how, the value, et cetera, of any collaboration would come in the form of a very succinct project statement and amendment, which you and the city would see as well. So.
Thank you for the context, David. It's appreciated. Where are we for timeline in needing to move forward, Nathan?
So this document does not, again, monetarily commit us to point A, point B. So I would like to get this signed and sent over to City Council done, because I have the locations for Sunnycrest really far down the design path, and there may be other locations that have other things coming up here that I would like to have those available to be reviewed. So yeah, I mean, next week, the week after that, if we could get the master signed, that would be fantastic. And then I will move on to the locations. Not that work's not being done on those, but until we get this done, there's certain things that we don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole just because we don't have an agreement yet.
Sure. Does anyone?
And would the master agreement have dollar amount in those? And the dollar amounts that are in there today, are they just example?
The master agreement, Supervisor Wickham, would not set out any of the value issues as it relates to any of these further project statements. We have given some examples so that Nathan could provide an idea in his head if it was going to be saving enough money to make it worth it. An example would be Sunnycrest. I think, Nathan, the first time you raised Sunnycrest as a target was a couple of years ago. The city was putting conduit in to reach the water plant along the river there. But that's a really expensive place to reach up on the top of the rock hill there. So we recently had a private sector entity that needed to reach those communication towers. So they and the water department, which also has some sensors up there, needed to create a path. So what Nathan is doing is tracking what we're doing on the build that puts conduit and fiber all the way to the doorstep at Sunnycrest. And once that's completed, he would then tell us what his capacity need is, 2 fibers, 4 fibers, etc., what his time period is he'd be interested in. And then we would reach an agreement on what the linear foot length is for providing that connection. So each of these would kind of be very site specific. The other item we have had Supervisor Wickham We have had one carrier come back to us, and in a future amendment, it did in fact amend a provision that it wanted to change in the master agreement. So that's another certainly option that Nathan knows he has with you, and that is if we develop a project in the future and there is something missing in the master agreement, or there is something that needs to be altered slightly in the master agreement, that can also be done by the amendment.
So Supervisor Wickham, yeah, what Dave said is my understanding as well, to where once this is finished, the master agreement, I will then more firmly lock down proposals from the city from a project perspective. Each location potentially is just a page-long document then, because it's just point A, point B, this is the linear foot cost, we're gonna do so many pairs of fiber, 3-year commit up front, 5-year commit up front, we can work that out. And then, you know, ideally I wanna get one done, you know, potentially Sunnycrest we're gonna lead off with, because that was what was approved during the budget cycle. And then each one of these will go faster, easier as we gain experience and the city and county, you know, build this partnership.
Okay, thank you.
This is Dave again. I think Councilman Wickham's question also touches on a second item, and that is the willingness for this to truly be what it's labeled as a master licensing and sharing agreement. So the other thing that, and I don't want to complicate anything because we're not making any decisions on that today, but we are very interested, Greater Dubuque Development's very interested in figuring out how the city and the county can both share funds, but also share infrastructure in the future. There will be infrastructure outside of the city that the city needs to use. So it would be very interested in it being a shared value arrangement. And there will also be facilities in the city that are kind of joint facilities where everybody would save money if we can share assets, like the Emergency Operations Center. So again, none of those decisions are being made today, but as Nathan pointed out, this master agreement will kind of give us the guidelines for us to sit down and talk about, okay, so what does now in fact make sense to propose, and when would we propose it and bring it back to the board and to the council?
Right, and so let me expand on that, and Dave, please feel free to jump in if I'm saying this incorrectly, but we don't, the county itself doesn't really have much conduit and fiber to bring to the table per se, but if we do, which I'm sure we will at some variation version of these buckets of fund coming in, that master's agreement goes both ways. So then we can make that available. The existence of that can be made available to the city, and then the city would come to us and say, okay, well, you know, we need 6 pairs of fiber between point A and point B, and we can have a sharing type agreement. It could be as black and white as, okay, now they're going to pay us money, or we can use it to, you know, neutralize some costs back and forth. But again, those are individual agreements that come after this, and every single one of those agreements will come to the board, and I'll have a similar work session to where we can explain it, talk about it, and, you know, approve each one going forward.
Do my colleagues have any reason that we wouldn't move forward on this agreement? To be a partner with the city to do this work, I think this is the boilerplate agreement. Is there any hesitancy about signing this?
I guess I'm just confused on still the dollar amount. So will there be dollar amounts in the master agreement?
No.
No.
Thank you.
I think there's a specific paragraph that says that the charges and terms and all will be in further documents.
So why are there in this document? Is it just for example? That's
Yes.
kind of what I asked. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Yes, those are for examples. The document that you will sign will be very clean. Those will be stripped out.
I didn't see dollar amounts in the document that I have. I don't know if we got different copies or what.
We must have.
Mine says section 4, charges, terms, project statements will be more fully described, charges and payment terms, and there wasn't any charges and terms.
We're probably looking at different document. I'm looking at was like 22 pages.
No, I'm not looking. I'm not working from
So,
that.
yeah.
Let's get a clean one,
That's
Nathan,
good.
with what you want us to sign. Let's maybe put it on for a resolution, and we can have a work session immediately before that and see if we're all good that there's no dollar amounts included. Supervisor Potoff, do you have any hesitations?
Oh, that's fine. Obviously, we've been discussing it. It's time to move forward and get the document signed that Nathan can continue moving forward, and we'll deal with the cost when they come up with the amendments. If we don't like it, we don't have to approve it at that time, but this is just a framework to get it started, I guess.
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you, Nathan. Can we get you back on then? You think within 2 weeks?
I'm eager to move this out. It'll be a week from now. If you want 2 weeks, you got it. If you want it a week from now, we'll be ready.
Let's see what's available. Check with Dawn and Mary Hobble on what the plans are with zoning and such. So very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, everyone.
Our next work session is to discuss an updated EB Lions agreement. And I don't know, is Brian Preston, are you here?
Yep.
Okay. What would you like us to know?
Well, 2 weeks ago, I think when we met last, there were some suggestions that we make changes on the outline agreement. We did that when under employee and supervise, we removed new, so a full-time naturalist located at EB Lions. And then under 1D, went on to describe more and more about the day-to-day maintenance at the facility. So it would be lighthouse, including light housekeeping, such as sweeping and mopping or vacuuming when needed, daily inspections of life safety systems and HVAC to ensure they're operating properly, and repairs that are outside of the abilities of staff to diagnose or repair will be reported to the appropriate supervisor.
So go ahead.
Kind of, it's hard to describe, everything that goes into the day-to-day maintenance, but with operating the Swiss Valley Nature Center, we're very familiar with what it requires and feel pretty comfortable with it.
What do you need us to do today, Brian? What is your request?
So I'd like for you to approve the outline and we can move forward to getting the formal partnership agreement established.
I have a couple questions when it's appropriate.
No, I think now, I don't know that, we could certainly make consensus, but we don't have this on as an action item. So it really is just work session to see if we're close. Go ahead,
Yep,
Supervisor Wickham.
So we haven't heard from the city. So, I would like, this agreement is, part and part, the two largest groups are the city and the county. The state is also a component of that. And so I would be very interested in hearing from the city, whether it's their staff members or city manager staff or council members. And then secondly, I'd be interested in hearing from the state as well. I don't want to assume the questions I have for them.
Dispatch, Bernard 261.
This is Marie.
So I don't know if my colleagues are interested in that as well. If not, then we can proceed. But
I think Marie is on today, and I think I've seen Deetra Detman with the DNR.
Jay, are you ready to ask questions? Is that formal enough for you or?
I am, if somebody from the city is available and also able.
Well, Marie Ware is here, which Marie, why don't you unmute yourself and then give us an introduction to your title.
Thank you, Supervisor. This is Marie Ware. I'm the Leisure Services Manager for the City of Dubuque.
Is that the level of person you want to speak to, Jay?
That would be wonderful. Yeah, no, I know Marie was gracious enough to come to our conservation board and talk to the members and the public. So appreciate that. Maybe just in why is this important to the city to have the county as a partner, and what do you anticipate kind of from a broad vantage point to accomplish?
Why is this important? Essentially, a number of years ago, we started conversations between the state and the city and the county and the Friends Group, as well as some other partners, being able to talk about the future for the Mines of Spain and the E.B. Lyons Center. And so what you're seeing today is a culmination of that. So what you see today is the essence of the group effort of trying to bring forward what everybody's expertise is, and also most importantly, I think, was what we started out with in the beginning is those shared goals that we all wanted to achieve as a part of this partnership. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, thank you. It gives me a context, and I generally think that we're moving in the right direction and having a partnership. I think it makes sense compared to the different roles and responsibilities. So, obviously the E.B. Lyons Center, the Friends Group, and then the whole Mines of Spain is quite a gem we have in Dubuque County. My question would be, your budget, the city's budget, is substantially larger than the county's. The state's is even much larger, and so we're the smallest player. And so, why isn't it a priority for the city to fund this 100%?
Well, as we looked at the goals and sat down and talked about it, we really did look at who has the technical expertises to do specific parts of this partnership. And so when we look at what we do best, we take care of a lot of, especially within my department, a lot of capital assets. Size of budget is relative to size of resources one has to maintain. And so although I might have a bigger budget within leisure services to take care of our parks and areas, the amount of programming as well as park spaces and also the level that each of them is taken care of within a city government is different than, and it's not that they're one is a higher quality than the other. It's just we have very different resources to take care of. So what we really tried to focus in on was who has those best capabilities to bring to the table in a partnership.
Yeah, I definitely can commiserate with you on facilities and overall parks and budgets, because we have well over 20 locations that we have to maintain and keep to associated level as well. So I definitely appreciate and understand that. I can understand our naturalists being there. I can understand our naturalists from Dubuque County being that educational expert and helping out there, and I think that's wonderful. I still come back to why you need us to pay for all the maintenance. Why do you have to have Dubuque County's dollars to pay for the maintenance on a city-owned building?
So what we really talked about was based upon the earliest discussions of, at times there's been conversations about the city doesn't pay their fair share, the county doesn't pay their fair share. And so basically in the beginning, we tried to look at it and say, how's the best way to share it? The best way to share it is try and come up with something that's a good 50-50 sort of a way to do that. And so that's how this agreement was structured, so that as we went into it, that we were sharing in a 50-50 way between the county and the city.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's, you know, I think I'm very pleased with the document that we've removed, assuming my colleagues agree as well, that we removed the hiring criteria, because I'd like that still to be with the Board of Supervisors and the Conservation Board. So I think that's a good step. My last issue which I have, and otherwise I think it's a great agreement, is just on the maintenance. I just don't understand why we're jumping in to pay for maintenance on a city-owned building when they have plenty of tax dollars to do just that. You know, we've got to be responsible for all 21, you know, I guess fair and equal to all 21 of our cities across the county, and stepping in to pay for maintenance costs on a city-owned property, just for me, it just doesn't seem like the right move. But generally speaking, I think we're moving in the right direction, and those are my last comments.
Dawn, in the shared document, would you go back and please put up 1D again, which is the maintenance, the day-to-day maintenance? I think that's been already read by Brian Preston, but I mean, I think that's the kind of, you know, Jay, you and I are just going to disagree about this. I don't think the day-to-day maintenance is a big ask for the county. It seems kind of common sense to me that we would do those simple things. So to your point about wanting to visit with someone from the state of Iowa, do you need to do that before we can feel that we might have consensus on this document going forward?
I think it'd be important for somebody from the state to at least give comment to this government body on the agreement.
Sure. And Brian, have you been working with the state? I mean, I'm assuming they've been at your meetings, I think, for years.
Yeah, they've been involved with from the get-go.
Okay, so is there someone from the state that you believe is here that could answer a question from Supervisor Wickham?
I've seen Deidre on here before. I'm not sure if she wants to jump in here.
I do see that her name is here, but maybe it's not in her realm of answering a finance question. If she'd like to be present, maybe we could see what Supervisor Wickham question is and if she's the right person.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. So good morning. My name is Deidre Detman, and I am the district supervisor for State Parks, Forests, and Preserves for Northeast Iowa. So Mines of Spain is in my region and purview.
Thank you for being with us. Supervisor Wickham, did you have a question then for the state?
Yeah, Deidre, thank you for being here. Yeah, kind of the same opening question as I had for Marie from the city is, you know, what's your vantage point on this agreement, and how do you think it's going to benefit your constituents in your organization?
Sure. Yeah, what I really like about this agreement is that I consider it an agreement of strengths. And like Marie had said, it really looks at what each party does best and how we bring that to the table. And for us at the state with the DNR, we're focusing on the Mines of Spain, the rec area, so the natural resource management, as well as, you know, all those amenities out there, and taking care of those visitors and making sure it's as safe of area as we can make it for the visitor aspect, but then also the natural resources with caring for the timber, dealing with invasive species, and so forth. That's probably been a bit of a trade-off in the past when we also were running the center. And given some of our resource limitations that we have at our level of the budgets that we get from the state, this will allow us to do what we do best and allow others to run the center that's, again, in their pool of strengths.
Okay, thank you. And the financial contribution that the state's committing to is $5,000 per year?
It is, as well as the commitment of a seasonal to help with some of the programming.
Okay. And what estimated, if you know, what is your estimated budget for your region?
I don't know know that I can give you a good number off the top of my head for that. For the entire region, the district?
That could potentially assist the Mines of Spain in this agreement.
Oh, as far as for the other operational aspect of the Mines of Spain? I have a whole
Maybe we
district budget
can
that
come back to that.
Okay, yeah.
That's fine. I think my question is it's $5,000 better than zero. That's where we started. But the state of Iowa, as far as a entity, has literally over $1 billion in reserves, and the DNR's budget and even your district is probably substantially larger than Dubuque County Conservation. So I would also go back to, why do you need us to pay for the maintenance and the other components? Why can't the state pay for it?
So, Chairman, this is Todd Coffin. Excuse me if I don't have the right title, please.
Oh, don't worry about that. Welcome. If you want to answer either of Supervisor Wickham's questions, please go ahead.
Oh, yeah, Supervisor Wickham, thank you. I was late getting on. Apparently my computer is smarter than I am, and that's not hard to imagine. I'd like to assist Dietrich's response with that. So for the Mines of Spain State Recreation Area, there are 1,400 acres, and as part of other operations commitments that we're making, we will have the one half of 2 full-time individuals. So 1 FTE that will be there. We do have the operation maintenance of the equipment and the shed that's there for the 1,400 acres. The commitments, we have the ranger that will be doing law enforcement duties halftime at the state recreation area. And then we have a park manager that will be halftime as well there. So generally speaking, with 1 full-time employee, that comes out of the operations for that area. And with that, so your question about what else does the state have to offer? I think the important part of that question is we've made budgets, and each resource has main commitments that we are able to afford. And those commitments are usually structured by how big the resource is, what it has to offer, how the resource gets used, what are the facilities we provide, we supply, that we're responsible for the public safety when they do go there. And so I don't have that number in front of me, but I know that's a 6-digit number easily. And so we have that for the resource as a whole. We may not have it for this one agreement for the interpretive center, but for the other parts of the resource that are there, we do have a 6-digit monetary commitment that we're making. But with that comes the whole department. And so whether it's with other conservation officers, biologists, fisheries folks on the river, and all the other resources in the area. So it is a substantial commitment, but the DNR, obviously we've been under a 7-year status quo budget, and it's a challenge. So we're not in just this area are we not able to do everything we want, but we are required to operate under that status quo budget. And I know everyone understands what happens over time with those, but for this area, we are trying to maintain what the priorities are, which is why we're seeking partnership and help on the interpretive center, because we know we have not been able to provide what that center needs by ourselves. So that's where the conversation and purpose for the partnership come from.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for that context. I greatly appreciate that. That helps, and I appreciate you both being here, because I like to, when you go into a partnership, it's good that you make sure that all the partners are at least on the same page. My last comment would be, I guess, to both the DNR and to the city, is that, citizens of Dubuque County and the surrounding area, I think, generally love the Mines of Spain. They love the EB Lions Center, and it's been a tremendous asset for us. And so I would ask you, as our larger partners in Dubuque County, is to try to up this prioritization of this area and do the prioritization with funding. So Dubuque County, I'm very proud to say, during my term, we have significantly increased our conservation budget and have made investments in conservation and in all of our facilities. And so I want your partners to do the same thing. We are not big enough to come to the rescue, but I'm happy that we can help here. But we really need our larger partners, that being the city and the state, to step up to help this gem of a property that's in Dubuque County. So appreciate that time, and hopefully you can take those to the higher ups. I do have a question for Brian Preston, if my other colleagues don't have any other questions.
I do not, except to thank you very much for being present. I don't know who asked you to attend, but it was critical that you would be here. So thank you for your input very much. It's appreciated. To go to Brian Preston, I also have questions for him as well. So if you want to begin, Supervisor Wickham.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned the maintenance, Supervisor McDonough, and so I want to make sure we're clear on that. So if you go to item 4 about the operational budget, so when we're talking about, you know, the costs and maintenance, it's not just a little light dusting, you know, and maybe Director Preston can comment on this. You're talking about audio visual system repairs, replacements. You're talking about aquarium expenses. You're talking about septic systems, water systems, alarm services, utility, gas and electric, building maintenance, elevators. None of those are cheap, and usually they all go up with time. So Brian, maybe you can comment, is it your understanding that we would split those items 50-50 with the city?
Yeah, so the overall operating budget would be a 50-50 split. And we're pretty confident in those numbers because we've had past, years to compare it with.
Okay. Does the city pay for any of the maintenance on any of our facilities at all, or any of our operational budgets on any of our assets we own?
Nope.
And who owns this building?
City.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, the question that we've been asking the guests today have been about the importance of this agreement and this collaboration. Given the fact that we're going to be entering into a budget agreement with the city on this, and that your budget and the requests that are made of conservation, why do you think this is the way to proceed?
I think it's really important, going back to our long range plan, environmental education has been one of the priorities, and it's indicated by the people that participated in public comment and the community leaders we talked to, that environmental education has been a priority. It is in our long range plan as well, and we're looking at doing a program with the Dubuque Community School District, and this would provide us the opportunity to move forward with that as well. Currently, with our limited resources, our office space here at Swiss Valley, it's really limiting what we can accomplish here, but this would it would expand our capabilities to provide that environmental education that is so important to the younger folks coming up, that they develop an appreciation, that awareness, that even just the experience of being outdoor, in an outdoor area, and learning about our natural resources. So hugely important for our environmental education program.
Do you need the space?
Yeah, we definitely need the space. And our offices here are very crowded. Our parking is very limited here at Swiss Valley. And if we move forward with the agreement with the Dubuque Community School District, that we're going to need the additional space, resources to complete that.
Do my colleagues have any needs or questions for Brian Preston? Supervisor Potoff, do you have anything you wish to ask?
I'm comfortable with the agreement. Obviously, Brian needs the space. If we have to go out and rent someplace, it's going to cost us just as much as or more than splitting the cost of the maintenance of this building, is my feeling on it. As long as the city is comfortable with the contract the way it is, I'm actually pretty satisfied with it. I'd like to move forward with it. We're into the time of the year where we need to get things rolling with it for the upcoming summer months here. I understand Supervisors Wickham's concerns about the maintenance, but like I say, Brian needs a space. If we have to rent space, it's going to cost us more than, or the same amount as the maintenance here will. So I think it's a wash.
Well, without sounding like a beating drum of the maintenance, but I just have to respond. So, I mean, the conservationist and, you know, and the educational piece, you know, I fully support, but, you know, you don't need to pay for, you know, audiovisual and, you know, water testing to do that, you know, and so they're disconnected. And then secondly, if you go into our strategic plan, you're not going to see on the first page that the conservation internally needs more workspace. That was never a priority or issue. So I won't disagree that they're crowded at the Swiss Valley Center, but there's probably ways to alleviate that, possibly at the, you know, cost of exhibits, but that would be an option. So it's just not our expertise to pay for all these maintenance costs. The city just wants us to, and so does the state. And so I just don't understand why we just voluntarily say, sure. That's my point. But I think, you know, to just disconnect those. So we keep talking about naturalists and education. Yes, I get that. But you know, and then to say, hey, you got to pay for these things. That's not the benefit we're trying to achieve in this agreement.
Right, but they are also paying things that you've not highlighted, which is you know, it's the overall operational budget and what we think it's going to be and who benefits from that. Does the city benefit? Of course. Do the citizens in the city benefit? Absolutely. Is it a benefit to the DNR and its mission? Of course. Those are great things to move forward on. So, you know, anytime you have a budget item, and this includes salary and benefits to one of our employees, you know, it's not without, we've weighted all these issues and we're just, I guess, deciding differently about maybe how we go forward. I can't undo paragraph 4 to make consensus here. You know, that's kind of the operational budget that we're being presented with, and the Conservation Board has voted on this. So you know, if there's something else we can do to address anything you would like to see changed, I guess this is, you know, this is the opportunity.
But we do have the power to change subject 4 by consensus, 2 out of 3. And so we do have that ability. And the Conservation Board did approve it, but we've, as Board of Supervisors, overridden other boards in the past. You can ask people from the Board of Health related to that. So, you know, I think I just see it as our responsibility to go over the words, go over the documents and make sure, you know, what you're paying for and is it fair and is it equitable? And, you know, these dollars that we submit to this are general basic dollars. So everyone, whether you're in Holy Cross or Dyersville or Cascade, city limits, those funds pay for this. And specifically, the city of Dubuque has tax dollars to pay for this. So does the state of Iowa. And so I just say, why isn't it a priority for them to pay for it? We've been making investments, significant investments, improvements in all of conservation. And I think that's great. And I think this partnership is great too. But, you know, we are not big enough to step in and try to help out the city of Dubuque and help out the state of Iowa. We are the smallest of the third groups. And so I just see it as a matter of prioritization and a matter of how important they think it is. And at the end, you know, I'll probably be voting for this because I think it is an important asset. But I want to just make it clear that, dang golly, I just, you know, it's like Tom Sawyer, you know. The city's getting us to do their work for them. I mean, come on, they can afford this. So can the state. They should help. They should pay.
And Jay, of course, we know that the city of Dubuque citizens paying into the general basic fund as well. So, I mean, they are contributing equally to the basic fund. So, you know, it's all taxpayer dollars. And I understand the citizens of Holy Cross. I'm hoping that they're going to bring kiddos here for education and also to enjoy the interpretive center. So very good. All right, well, are we going to have consensus on this to bring this forward? I personally would like to see this come back as an action item to approve the outline and to send it forward to the city of Dubuque to get us a 28E agreement based on this outline. Is anyone else thinking that they might also wish to have that happen?
I would agree with you on that, Ann.
And Supervisor Wickham, sounds like you are ultimately
The
generally in
maintenance,
agreement.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I love the item 4 is the last one. You know, I had 3 items and, you know, 2 of them have compromised on. So I appreciate that. One was the annexation, that the city now is going to have an agreement with the state to annex the whole property. And then secondly, to remove the requirement of the employee. That's good. So it's not a requirement. It's just a staff member, which is excellent. And then the last piece was the maintenance. And so I think that's where we're not going to agree. So, but the other pieces I think are going to be wonderful opportunities.
I would put this question before my colleagues. Jennifer Tigas is here today, and she represents the Friends of the Mines of Spain and the Friends of the EB Lions. She's asking to make some comments on behalf of herself and that group. Are we okay with that? Shall we take a moment?
I definitely am. Yeah, I would love to hear from any of the Friends group. They're great allies.
Okay, Jennifer, you're here if you would like to speak with us.
Thank
Go
you. My name is Jennifer Tigas, and I am on the board of directors for the Friends of the Mines of Spain. We've gone over a lot in this. On a technical aspect, we are the smallest player in this. In the agreement, there is not a specific dollar amount that the Friends group has to put into this. In the past, we have put in probably $20,000 a year. And some of that includes some of that maintenance. The AV system that is currently at the EB Lions Center, the Friends group purchased. And so, I mean, we've done a lot of additional purchases, but we don't have that information in this agreement.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And I believe that the Friends group will be supporting some of the maintenance and some of those pieces like we have in the past once this is approved.
I mean, I would note that you've been engaged in this multiple years discussion. You've been at the table along with Marie Ware and Brian Preston, correct?
Yes, yes. And it's just really interesting to see that the city of Dubuque is actually going to be paying for half of a county position. And so those partnerships between the city, the state, and the county and the Friends group is pretty remarkable. And it's all, you know, really for the public and for children and recreation and for people to gain that knowledge of the assets that are available and the history of the area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, Brian, I think you know the tone. Let's bring this back with an action item on our next agenda. And we'll then be in a place to make a formal and final decision on this.
Sounds good. I will get that done, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.
At this time, next on our agenda is going to be a closed session, and we will be entering closed session based on a request from our auditor, which is going to be pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21, Section 20.5 sub J, for the purpose of discussing the purchase of a particular piece of real estate. So we'll be entering closed session on that, and I would ask Dawn Sherman and Auditor Dragato how you intend to affect this as we are currently in public.
Can you hear me there? So
Yes.
I've spoken with Auditor Dragato, asking him who needs to be present in here. And so once you as the board make a motion to go in closed session, It'll be the three of the supervisors, Auditor Dugato, myself, Mary Hobble, and Jenny Hillary. And if Stella is still available, yep, Stella is still here. The rest will need to remove themselves, or I can remove them from the meeting, and then we'll lock the meeting for closed session.
Okay, so at this time, I would entertain a motion from the board to enter into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Section 20.5 sub J for the purpose of discussing the purchase of a particular piece of real estate.
So moved.
I will second.
Motion and a second to move into closed session. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. We will enter closed session.